Welcome to the Money Talk podcast. I was like, dang, Mike's not here, and he just dropped a comment. Hello, hello, welcome, guys. Here we go. We're all good. We're all set up. We're gonna have a fun one today. I Today we're gonna focus on making two corrections. A couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, I did a live where I kind of went through the process of getting a Tesla, my thoughts on it, comparing what a viewer was saying to me. And today we're gonna make some not corrections, but we're gonna update you guys on his actual numbers. I had to make some assumptions because he wasn't here with me. So we're gonna go through that first. I said I would do it last week and I didn't. Not first. I'm gonna show you my numbers, how much money I made, and then right after that, we'll talk a little bit more about Tesla. We're gonna also transition away from talking about brand new Teslas. I think you guys heard me enough on that. I've started looking at used Teslas to kind of start feeling out how I feel about the prices of used Teslas versus how many miles they have. And then after that, I need to make a correction where last week I like impromptu decided to use one of the trips that I took here in Charleston and compare that using the new pay standards that they're trying to enact in Minneapolis. And man, you guys tore me apart from that. The most major thing that I didn't do, which I should have, was that I didn't calculate how much time drivers spend waiting before their next ride when I said they make 45-ish dollars an hour. So I figured out a way to calculate that. I'm going to walk you through that process, and we're going to redo the math and see exactly how much the city council's proposal will be per hour, how much the mayor's suggestion will be per hour, how much it would have been per hour if it were my market, just for the fun of it. We do have a couple of other things to talk about as it pertains to Minnesota. We will hopefully get to those. And we do have other topics outside of that that I really do want to get to and cover. But, it's going to be based off of time. And I don't want to mislead you. I had someone rightfully complain that I said I was going to talk about something, but I ran out of time and never talked about it. He wasted his time looking for that segment. So, in order to prevent that from happening, I'm going to do a better job of only mentioning things I will 100% try to actually cover. So I'm going to quickly go through the comments. Then we're going to get started. We're going to be very quick on my personal earnings from last week. I ain't do too much. A little burnt out from the weekend before where I made $2,000 in 3 days. So Mike says 3:30 now. Correction is live by my statement. Nah, it's 3 o'clock. So what happens is, and I need to get better at this, there's the delay from when I go live to when the live accepts my feed to when that feed is then shown to you. So in my time, I'm hitting that button right at 3 o'clock. So you might see it a little late, just because of all that delay. And I guess I can figure out what that delay is. I guess I can do it. I'll do it at the end of the stream. I'll figure it out. And the next time I'll make sure I'm here on time. I got to start being here on time according to you, not on time according to what it's saying on my clock. The stuff saying I waited for 12 people on Sunday, didn't hit my second bonus for Uber. What do you mean you waited? As in, um, you had to cancel because you were waiting and people didn't show up? What do you mean waited? Nasef, for those who don't know, he's in the comments right now that you guys see on the screen. He's in my market. He made more money than me last week and the week before. One of these weeks, I'm gonna go hard, go ham, and give you a run for your money. But let's switch over to this is the Lyft app, and you can see how much money I am missing because I'm here talking to you guys. I could be out driving, but here I am. So if you appreciate that, make sure you hit the like button. Looks like I got a 10-cent tip. This is from gas cash back down here. One of the benefits of being a platinum driver, not even platinum. I think if you just use the feature Lyft has where you go to certain gas stations, you get upside cash back as well. The actual 10% that you get from Lyft, that actually gets added to your Lyft debit card. So let's check out what I did last week. It's really nothing special. I didn't go hard last week. I took too many days off. I shouldn't have taken that many days off. And then it was my wife's birthday. So I didn't drive a lot last week. This is for what, Monday, for yesterday. So let's go to last week. Here we go. All right, so Monday, a late tip came in just for $20. March 18th, Tuesday, I didn't drive. Wednesday, I didn't drive. Thursday, March 21st, I guess I drove a little, $52.50. What time was this? This was in the morning. So I woke up early, got started, and I guess I drove into Friday. Yep, that's what happened. Friday was okay, nothing crazy. No ride challenges, no nothing like that. I just put the time in, $484.19. It says 9 hours of online time, but it's probably closer to like 12. Just because I pick people up, I drop them off, and then I head back downtown. And I use to stay within the area filter, so it's not like I'm driving 10, 15 minutes to get back downtown. It might be like 5 to 8 minutes to get back down there if a ride isn't keeping me downtown. That's what I like to do when it's busy and I know that the bonus zones aren't going to be where I drop the passenger off. I'll just go offline and drive downtown. I need to find a better way to track my what I call door to door time, the time I spend outside of my house actually doing rideshare. I need to put that on my spreadsheet. I'm still thinking about the best way to implement it, but um, this online time isn't the whole story. We'll scroll up. And then Saturday, I drove for about 5 hours, maybe it's like 6 or 7. I made $294.91. I drove up until like midnight, and then Sunday was my wife's birthday, so I was like, all right, let me just go home. I stopped. I got her a little sundae from Wendy's. Woke her up. We ate some Wendy's sundaes, and then Sunday I just hung out with her. We went to this pier that I found thanks to Rideshare, and it was on the day of a full moon, and the skies were clear. It was beautiful. It was awesome. We also went out and got some food, and it was just a good time. You know, being a rideshare driver showed me some spots that I would have never discovered otherwise, both when it comes to the restaurant we ate at. I found it through rideshare, and that little secret spot is like they built a park on an old pier, like an old bridge, and it just gave us the perfect view to see the moon without any obstructions. It was pretty cool. It was a good day. I don't regret not driving Sunday. Um, this is the kind of like this is me driving Monday morning, but you know I wake up early. But I don't regret the money I missed out on uh, by spending it with my wife. You know, I'm happy that I'm able to go hard, make up for money, and plan ahead so that you know when important life events are happening, I can take time without falling behind. So you know that's something that rideshare provides us when it's busy. We're in like for a lot of us, busy season is starting to ramp up, and I kind of just want to make sure you guys don't forget the struggle that we went through this past winter. So when it is busy, you should be putting your pedal to the metal and making as much money as possible. You need to be making more money than you need per month so that you can help offset the lack of income that might happen once it starts slowing down during the winter season. Winter is coming. I know it's early. It's only March. It's about to be April. But this is the season to be stacking up your nuts for your hibernation that might happen in the winter. I know Nasef, he actually, I don't know where he lives specifically. I venture to say it's outside of the country, but he comes to my market just for like 6 months. Like he just came back like 2, 3 weeks ago. He drives a bunch and then he takes that money and goes back to wherever he came from. It's not for everyone, but it is a thing that people can do. It's a thing that people do outside of rideshare. People move all the time for money. Um, but even if you don't have to move, if your market is good in the summer, you need to be doubling down. You need to be pulling those 12-hour days. You need to be stacking your money because it's going to get hard this winter. This winter was the hardest winter I had. And I assume that every winter will be harder than the previous. My general thought process here is that rideshare is not a great long term thing to do. And that's how I approach my day to day. I'm trying to take advantage of what I can take advantage of today because the money that we could potentially earn tomorrow just isn't promised. One day you're doing Uber and Lyft, and then the next day a city council can make Uber and Lyft leave a city. We don't really know what's going to happen. So I try to take advantage of every single day. I didn't do any Uber. Uber's just not been the move right now. That's all I can really say. Like I look for excuses to do Uber, but just based off of the tools that Lyft provides me, I'm just able to capitalize better with Lyft. All right, so now that I've shown you proof, so you guys don't call me a liar, let's quickly go through the spreadsheet. All right, so this is for January. This is for March. Okay, so last week was what? I guess Lyft can tell me. March 18th to the 24th. So from the 18th until the 24th, right here, I drove 775 miles. See how much I made. 17th to the 24th, I made $1,685. Is that true? This is for the tablet. I made $150 on the Play Octopus tablet. March 17th. No, Sunday, March 17th was for the previous week, right? Yeah. So that I shouldn't have counted that. It should just be this. No, that's not accurate, is it? Let's just see what Lyft is saying. See weekly breakdown. Go to the previous week. Okay, so I made $892 with Lyft last week. I didn't drive a lot. Just didn't. Booked miles is a lie. You see where it says 288 miles for booked. I'm not gonna say it's a lie, but if that's the number they're using to determine your taxes at the end of the year, I'm gonna show you why you should be tracking your own mileage. So right here. So I actually drove 400 and nope. Yeah, there we go. 450 miles. You guys can't see that. So 450 miles over my driving history for last week. Some of that is personals in there, but not much. It's not much personal. There's a little bit of personal in there. And then Lyft is saying that I only booked 288 miles. I'm not going to do the math to show you how much of a tax write-off you'd be missing for this. I'll probably have to just make a bigger video where I take a larger sample size. But you really should not be relying on Uber and Lyft for your mileage. You need to be tracking it yourself. You need to have one, in my opinion, that's manual, one that's automatic. I use Google Maps. You can use like Stride or what is that other one called? It's right there. I can envision the app in my head. Gridwise. But you definitely should be using more than one method because it's important. This is money. We're talking about money. You need to capitalize on every single dollar that you're able to capitalize on. So we'll close this out. All right. So we'll just look at the month in the monthly summary. So far in March, not including what I've done this week, I've made $6,888. This doesn't include my cash tips. Haven't put it in here, but it does include my Play Octopus tablet. If you want this spreadsheet or the Play Octopus tablet, it's in the description of most of my videos. I don't know if it's in the description of this live stream. I need to update it, but you can go to any recent video that I have and all of the links to anything I talk about will be there, including the app that I'm about to show you that shows you how much drivers are making in other people's markets. I'm not going to take any requests today for markets just because I want to make sure I can get through some of these topics. We got some important stuff I want to talk about. So my per hour is $53.67. It's a little misleading until I can figure out how to incorporate door-to-door time instead of only relying on online time into my spreadsheet. This number just won't be accurate, and that's the truth. Anyone who wants you to think that their online time is accurate is misleading you. Anyone who wants you to only pay attention to active time is misleading you. Those things are important, but it's not a good way to accurately talk about how much a driver is making per hour. Understanding, we'll talk about it for a little bit. Okay, so sometimes I get really annoyed, and this is something that humans do, something that I do, and I try to stop myself from doing. We like to get into this black and white territory. We'll have debates, and we'll say, nah, man, active time is more important than online time, or door-to-door time is more important than online time. And door-to-door time, for those who don't know, is the time you spend outside of your house actually doing rideshare. So if I leave at 8 a.m. and I come back at 8 p.m., That is 12 hours of door-to-door time. Now, during that door-to-door time, that doesn't mean I have the app on the whole time. I might turn the app off while I'm waiting for bonuses. So if I sit around waiting for bonuses for an hour, then my online time would be 11 hours. My door-to-door time would be 12 hours. Now, for the time that I actually was online and trying to get a ride, my active time might be 5 hours. So I'm not going to say that one of those numbers are generally more important than the other. I am going to say that as business owners, as independent contractors, we need to be paying attention to all three of them. Because if we figure out how to get our active time as close to our door to door time as possible, the chances of you making more money in that scenario will increase. But that's not always the case. Um, there's a sliding scale to it. But the overall point I'm making is data matters, and knowing your data matters more. So it allows you to make better decisions about when to work, what strategies to use. Like if you're trying a new strategy and you don't really have data points to coincide with, how are you going to compare if that strategy really worked or not? You know, you could have made more money for that strategy, but your expenses could have increased for that strategy, negating the actual benefit. So that's just an example. I don't want to get too deep into it, but don't fall into the trap that numbers don't matter, or into the trap that one number specifically matters over another, because that's typically not the case. So far this month, I've driven 4,228 miles, which works out to a per mile average of $1.63. Now, this is only business mileage. I made sure that this tracker can differentiate between personal and business. So my amount made per mile does not include personal mileage. My expenses so far, I need to include my phone bill. I realized today that I haven't included in like the last 3 months. It kind of just slipped my head. Sorry. But so far it's $903, and that's with me buying 3 tires. So hopefully I don't have to buy 3 tires for a couple of months. My tires usually last about 40 to 50K if there's not too many nails in them. If there's one nail in it and it's not in the sidewall, I'll fix it myself. If a tire has more than one nail in it, it's time to go. I don't, from a safety perspective, if I were driving just myself to work, I'd be okay with it. But when you're dealing with other people in your car, that's not a risk I want to do. My expenses per mile so far, 21 cents per mile. It's pretty good. You guys know the tax write-off is 67 cents. The money you make in between that spread, so about 46 cents, is tax-free. Tax-free money. Thank you, government. So you can see my expenses down here. My gas is $383.95 per hour. That works out to $2.99. That's the biggest expense that we're gonna have. My tires are $386.46. Currently bigger than the gas, but as I drive this week, the gas is gonna eclipse it. Car wash is a fixed $19.99, unlimited washes. And my insurance is $112.75, which includes personal and livery insurance. We just got a excellent rate because me and my wife have been paying down our debt. She's always had a great credit score. My credit score has improved. Our driving history is really good. And we found a smaller company that focuses on giving great rates to drivers who aren't likely to do claims. So that's me. Happy with it. We got really lucky. We looked around, we shopped around. Our last insurance was trying to increase to over like $500 for both cars per month. So of course this is just my half. Uh we don't split. Oh man, I forgot. I want to show you guys my personal finance. I want to give you guys a peek into how I handle my personal finances with my wife, into our budget and all of that. I'll do that next week. Because I want to encourage you guys to start making budgets, to start, you know, thinking about accounting for your rideshare business and for your household stuff. I think that making money is important, but I think that saving money is as equally as important as making money. So you can make all the money in the world, but if you're not using that money wisely, it's irrelevant. And I think that drivers can fix their personal finances today, and do it a lot quicker than going out and making more money. So I want to start having more conversations about that. You can kind of just see my day by day, filling these in. Some of these don't have hours assigned to them. That was an accident. Yikes. Hold on. Here we go. So yeah, you see some of them don't have hours assigned to them because like for the tablet doesn't have an hourly amount, you know? See what I'm saying? Oh my god, I did it again. Yeah, so it doesn't have an hourly amount. Sometimes I might get tips, like this is a tip day where it just doesn't translate over. And this might have been a ride. Like sometimes Lyft is weird. What is this, March 3rd? Let's see what that's about. Let me see if I can pull that up. Was the third? Was it the third? I don't think it was the third. Yeah, March 3rd. Let me go see. Oh, did I put the number? Hold on. Give me a second, guys. I just want to make sure my numbers are accurate. Okay, no. So I just missed. I didn't put in the time. But it's nothing crazy, right? It's 34 minutes. So I'll just put that in right now, right here. So 0, 30, and then it'll calculate the hourly right here in a second. So $94.30. It's a little deceiving, but that's just because of how Lyft does things sometimes. I don't even know. Like I'm not even fully sure. It literally says $47.15 right here. You can see the 34 minutes, one ride, and then you look at the pay for that one ride, and that's what it says. So I don't know. I don't really know what's going on here. I think that maybe I took a ride on the 4th of March and the time or the amount was associated with the previous day. Let's see. Oh, this is the week I worked a lot. So I'm going to have to scroll for a little bit here. Here we go. So 5:13 p.m. So no, I don't even have an explanation for why it's doing that, but this is the Lyft app and I didn't make that up. So we can move on from this. We'll do a monthly summary in a week, right? Because the month ends soon, and then we'll see how much money I can make. If I can make $3,000 this week, I'll cross $10,000 for the month. But it'll be very 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 hard to do that. Very hard. Usually when we come off of a monster week, usually it slows down for a little bit. I do know it's Easter this weekend. I know last Easter I made pretty good money, but I don't know if that's going to be the case this year because last Easter we had ride challenges and I was abusing the ride challenges with my strategy. And they're not available this year. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm going to check in on the comments. And then after the comments, we're going to follow up with the viewer who I made that video about with the Tesla. CBL Daddy says, "Hey, what's up, man? I see you. Thank you for coming. I must have missed you earlier." And stuff said, waited for 12 people. Can't dang, yeah, 12 people cancel on you on Sunday, bro. That's rough. Just like in the weekend where I made $2,000 and I had to do 120 rides, if maybe about 2 people canceled on me, I wouldn't have hit it. So for you to have 12 people cancel on you, and if I'm not mistaken, Uber makes you wait longer than Lyft. Lyft's wait time is 5 minutes before you can cancel without any adverse effects happening to you. Let me know. I know it differs market to market, and I'm not sure what it is for here. So you let me know. CBL Daddy says, if you get DUI, how long does it stay on your background? I don't know, but I am curious. So let's see if we can figure that out. So we're gonna use Bard information that's received by Bard. This is AI. It could be fake. It could be made up. It could be wrong. And I am just telling you that because I want you to know that. How long does a DUI stay on your record? If you don't mind talking about it, why are you asking? You know, do you have a DUI? Are you able to drive with Lyft but not able to drive with Uber? I know Uber is a lot more strict than Lyft. So, you know, give me some more information about why this is so interesting to you. So this is for South Carolina. DUI offenses in South Carolina can stay on your record for a very long time, depending on what kind of record you're looking at. Criminal record, a DUI conviction stays on your criminal record forever. Where I live in South Carolina, there's no process to have it expunged. Driving record, the DUI will stay on your driving record for 10 years. How long does it stay on your record federally? I'm not going to correct the spelling. You guys can deal with it. DUIs are not federally reported offenses. There's no central DUI database. So you're going to have to look at your state. What if I want to be an Uber driver? Even though DUI doesn't stay on your federal record, it can impact your eligibility to become an Uber driver in South Carolina. Generally, let's see what they say. I'm a little curious here. I'm not going to stay too long on this, but I am curious. Can you drive with Uber or Lyft if you have a DUI? Generally, you cannot drive with Uber or Lyft if you have a DUI conviction within the last 7 years. So 7 years seems to be the statute of limitation. So 7 years might be a good time frame to go by. Okay, I'm pretty satisfied with that general answer. Mike B says, my sister uses the Lyft app for the gas discount. I think it's worth it. You know, it's pretty good. If I weren't so hardcore trying to track my expenses and making sure they're accurate for all of you guys, I'd probably make my wife use my gas card as well. You know, it's 10% cash back as an elite driver. And so if I spend $400 on gas in a month, I get $40 back for gas. And it's not just for gas. I can use that money however I want. But for me, it takes about $40 to go from completely empty to full. And I can make about $300, $400, $500 on a full tank of gas. So to me, I see that 10% cash back as a way to enable me to go out and make more money. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. There have been times in my life as a Uber and Lyft driver when I wasn't handling my money correctly. And the only thing between me not being able to work and like not having enough money for gas was a couple of rides. Like I get into my car, no money in my bank account, and I'd be like quarter tank, and I would have to drive until I got that quarter tank low enough to go and then buy more gas and and build up from there. It's happened a couple of times, and not proud of it, but we all have money issues. We'll have money troubles. I've seen people ask for money in these Facebook groups because they just don't have enough money for the next gas tank, and I am happy that I took the necessary steps to stop that. I've always only ever driven, I've driven outside of Charleston, but my main market has always been Charleston. I've actually driven on a bunch of cities on the East Coast. I drove from Key West to Maine, and I drove on whichever states and cities let me drive on the way up. But even if you're making good money, if you're not like being wise with your money, it's irrelevant. It's simply irrelevant. Some of us are lucky to out earn our financial stupidity, but your dollar can go so much further by just doing some personal accounting. And we'll cover that next week. Definitely we'll cover that next week. We need to start talking more about that. CBL Daddy says, I had a reckless driving in 2019. It is 2024, so it's been 5 years. So you got 2 more years to go. So are you just hanging out here and you want to be a rideshare driver, or have you applied? The first step is to apply. My dad, he doesn't have he doesn't have full citizen status yet, but he was able to qualify legally with Lyft. But Uber is making it difficult. Like he has proper American documents, he has American license, but it's specialized to his status, and Lyft accepts that. So I would just say, even if you're concerned about your record, you need to get a definite answer. So just apply and see what they say. If they don't accept you, you can apply in the future. Um, you might be unable to do rideshare, but you might be able to do food delivery, right? So if I don't know what you're doing, what you have done, just let me know, and I want to talk through that. Here's the verdict: says, in my market, Tampa, Florida, we have a turbo percentage challenge this week, but bullcrap, no surges. I just got access to turbo, and I'm still on the fence. If turbo is replacing something else, I'm not happy about it. If turbo is in addition to what we currently have, that's fine. But if turbo is going to replace ride challenges, if turbo is going to replace like the bonuses that show up on the map by encouraging drivers to go and drive during turbo bonuses, then it's not worth it. However, if you drive higher tier Lyft, I do think it's worth it. If you're driving Lyft Black or Lyft Lux or whatever we have left, because your base pay is generally better than on regular Lyft, then you can do well. I've seen some screenshots. I'll save some next time to show you guys. But if you're getting base pay $50 on like an average trip, 30% of $50 is not a small number. That's pretty good. But for the rest of us with regular cars, it's not that great. So yeah, that's how I feel about it so far. Tesla Chronicles. Tesla Chronicles is actually the person who we'll be talking about in the next video, where I made that video on, and we're gonna see if his latest numbers can change my mind on how I feel. Tesla Chronicles says, all peak times I spend $5 to $8 on a full charge from 20% battery to 90%. That's pretty good. Someone made a great point recently, and I don't remember what it was. Oh yeah, I was just talking with passengers, and I'm not this isn't me trying to like speak down on Teslas or whatever, or even California, but they did mention that during the summer they have blackout periods. I don't really know how they work, and I would hate to be a driver with a Tesla during time periods. I think they made it illegal to do certain things as far as electricity goes during certain times. I don't know. This is all kind of hearsay. I haven't really looked into it, and I probably won't. That's too localized to California. Colo says that's called freedom. You got to be more specific. CBL says, I want to rideshare driver. I did apply. They didn't accept in shitty California. So yeah, I think California has higher requirements as well. So unfortunate. Are you able to qualify for food delivery at all? Tesla Ride Chronicle says, I'm in Cali. CBL Daddy says, I'm semi-retired. I sold my business and house. I'm blessed. I've been on vacation the last 3 years. I got bored and want to do rideshare. I got you. I would say if you're bored, I don't know what your family structure is, but I would become a truck driver and just do that if you're bored. But I don't understand boredom. I have too much on my plate to ever really be bored, and that's kind of by design. I always try to do more than I'm able to. I feel like I'm my happiest when I'm hovering around 80% fulfilled. Like if I ever feel 100% fulfilled, I'm gonna get bored. I'm gonna feel like I'm not growing. But if I'm ever too far away from that fulfillment level, I'll probably just get depressed, which I'm not a depressed person, but I like to hover on that 75, 80%. Tesla Chronicle says they don't have them anymore. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what them is. Oh, you mean the rollout and blackouts? I got you. Okay, well that's good. If they've improved their electricity grid, then that's good. Nassif says I wait 11 minutes per person. Terrible. Your problem is that you're only using one app. You should be using both apps. If you're finding it slow on one app, you need to turn around and use the other app. And these last few days, wait time has increased in our market, and it's just gonna ebb and flow, man. It's gonna ebb and flow based off of what events are in town, what's going on, how much tourists are in town. I know that some of the schools here, the high schools, are on spring break, and that's gonna mess with traffic levels. And when there's less traffic, rideshare drivers can move around quicker, which lowers the amount of bonuses that are happening, the amount of rides that can increases how quickly rides happen. So there's a lot of different things at play here that you kind of just have to pay attention to. Nah, he's in my market. Yeah, he's literally in my market. In fact, let's look at this for a second. This is the Solo app. It shows you how much other drivers are making in different markets, but it doesn't show you how many hours they worked. And I wish they would include that. But the number one driver last week is in Los Angeles, California, and they made $3,042. Number two is in Las Vegas. This is where I want to move to next year. They made $2,819. Number three is Denver at $2,767. Number four is Sacramento, California at $2,738. Number five, San Francisco, California, $2,703. Number six, New York with DoorDash, $2,651. For people who are able to crack over $2,000 using food delivery apps, shout outs to you. You guys are dope. Seattle, Washington, using Uber and Lyft, $2,612. And then we have Nasef. According to Solo, in the entire nation of all drivers who have this app on their phone, he's ranked number 8th with $2,530. He is just I think Nasef is just he's like he just came back and he's used to what the ride frequency that we've had for like St. Patrick's Day and even the week before where we had Charleston Food and Wine, and that's not normal. That's not normal. That's like peak. That might be normal in the summer, but until we get to the summer, it just depends on the events that are happening. So he's still making money. He's just waiting a lot more. He's just he had a lot more cancellations. He said he had 13 cancellations, but no, me and him are in the same market. But he crushes it. He puts the effort in. He puts the hours in. And he's about it. Way more about it than I am. Number 9 is Newark, New Jersey, $2,495. And number 10 is Minneapolis with $2,483. So I do want to point out, you got some. When you look at these numbers, guys, I don't want you to think this is the most you can make in your market. This is at minimum what you can make in your market. That's kind of how I look at it. If someone else is able to make $3,000 and $3,042, I need to figure out how to bridge that gap between my income and their income. I need to do research. I need to be asking questions. Hey, is this person doing Uber Black? Are they doing Black XL? Like, what are they doing? What times are they driving? This is just a good tool for determining if there is a higher earning potential for your market. I really like this tool. I wish it were a little better. I wish it would show the hours and things like that, because my goal is to be able to. I started my YouTube channel because I realized that a lot of people are bad with money, myself included. I started learning about the stock market and how people can have a very strong retirement and retire with dignity if they understood the market. Started making videos for that, but they didn't really take off. And then my rideshare video started taking off. So I decided that I'm going to try to hide teaching people how to be better financially with their money through rideshare. So that's the overall goal here. And one of the problems I face, and it drains me, is that sometimes I have to convince people that there are things that they can do to make more money or even save more money, right? Your market does matter. But what I think matters more than your market is you. If you're not the top driver in your market, then there is something that you can do to make more money. And that's what I want you to open up your eyes to first. Now, if you are the top driver in your market and you're still unhappy with the amount of income that you're making, then I would sit down with you and I would say, okay, it's either time for a career shift or it's time to go somewhere else, right? And I don't jump to this idea that drivers should go and move cities just to drive, because most of the time drivers have more opportunity to make more money in their own city without leaving the city. And like, don't forget, you can go to a better market, but if you were the issue in your market and you go to a different market, you're still going to be the issue because you move with you. So yes, market does matter. The average person in my market, you can take a look at that right now. Let's go to jobs. The average person in my market made $24 an hour last week. I make more than that. Some weeks I'm doubling that. And I showed you guys on my spreadsheet, like my average, this is $53 an hour, and there's some issues with it. But let's just drop it to by $10. Let's say it's $43 an hour. That's still almost. It's not quite almost double what the average Lyft driver in my market is making. You can't just sit here and say it is my market, even though it does play a degree. But you can't you can't water down my tips and my strategies by claiming that it's my market. There's a percentage of it that does relate to the market, but regardless of market, strategy matters. What you do matters. Let me go back to the comments, and then once I read these last few comments, we're gonna go and talk a little bit about Tesla, and then we're gonna talk a little bit about Minneapolis. Tesla Ride Chronicles, man, I did really good this week. $900 in 8 hours. That's dope. I made $900 in one day. Wasn't in 8 hours, but it was in one day. And it's the most money I've ever made in one day, period, in my life. And it felt good. I worked really hard for it. Mike B says, can you please show Virginia Beach, Mark, if you have time? Maybe. If I do have time, I'm going to save it for the end. But there's some things I really do need to go through. CBL says, shout out to Nasef. It's very simple, drive longer. Yes and no. Yes and no, right? I'm making, even though it's become harder to make the same amount of money I was making last year, I'm still making more money than I was making last year. So the brute force method is to drive longer, sure, but there are strategies that can be used to increase your income. And Steph said, imagine if I had Uber Black. Are you renting? I thought, are you just unable to have Uber Black because your Tesla is not black? I really don't know how it works. I wish our market had Lux, not Lux. I think Lux is gone, but there's certain ride types that aren't available in the Charleston market that is available in other markets. We just don't have access to them, and it would be cool if we did. Tesla Chronicle says Uber Black is good when you see your expenses. I get what you're saying. It depends on the car you have. Guy from the 504. I get a lot of comfort rides and think it makes a difference. I haven't done any comfort rides. But comfort rides have a bigger base pay. So if you're referring to the turbo hours, it could work for that. But I need to do a detailed look at the pay difference for regular rides and comfort rides. I know that it was nerfed, right? It used to be like Lyft Lux or something like that, or XL. Unsure. I only drive regular base because I have a Volkswagen Jetta, but I think that they took money away from us when they introduced comfort. 100K delivery driver says, why you want to go to Vegas next year? I am trying to be a full-time content creator, for starters. So when I was thinking about where I want to move to next, I decided that it has to be a state that has no state income taxes. And there are a couple of them, right? The closest one to me here is Tennessee, but I suspect that someday I'm going to have to retire on the East Coast. My sister's family does live here. And I think I will prefer the East Coast long term. So I'm saving Tennessee for that. You know, I think that the world is huge and there's still a lot of places I want to go and live and experience the culture of. And I've never lived out west, and I don't want to live in California. The taxes are too high, cost of living is too high. But I want to live somewhere that gives me the ability to visit all these places that are nearby. So if I live in Vegas, no state income taxes. I don't want to say the word on stream. I don't want to get demonetized or whatever. But that thing that you can smoke is legal there, and I'd rather build my online business in a tax-free state. And Vegas is centrally located on the West Coast to where, you know, I can go spend some time at the Grand Canyon. I can go to LA especially once I get that train up and going, if it ever gets up and going. And there's a bunch of other states and things to do that I just want to be close to. I don't plan on living there long term, but I do want to experience the western half of America. So, and I plan on moving once I'm debt free. Tesla Ride Chronicle says if you make $1,500 a week, you should be doing great for yourself financially. I'm gonna say it depends. How much money you make is important, but how much money you keep is important too. And a lot of people, they haven't done the work, right? Like, to be honest, if I walked up to you right now in person in your house, we're assuming I'm in your house, you invited me over, I'm in your house. If I walked up to you and I said, hey, show me your budget for last month. Could you do it? Right? If I were to ask you guys right now if you have a budget, maybe you have one mentally, but do you have a written budget somewhere? Do you have one on a spreadsheet? Do you have one that you can actually show me? Can you actually show me to the penny how much money you need to make this month? And a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people think that budgets are for poor people. I think budgets are for everyone. Doesn't matter if you make a bajillion dollars. It doesn't matter, and it's even more important the more money you make to have a budget. A budget is just permission to spend, right? It's not a restriction to spend. So I do want to start making videos about that and start talking a little more about it. Tesla Raikkonen says, I make $100 per hour. I need to get like you, bro. I need to get like you. CBO Daddy says, driver, I'm sure he wants to follow the money. Vegas I might be able to make more money in Vegas. I would have to relearn the entire market, and their market is not a common market. They have seasonality over there, and I'd have to learn that very quickly. Very quickly. And there's also higher requirements to become a driver in Vegas, and gas is more expensive. So my number one expense would increase in Vegas. At that time when I move, hopefully I'm not a full-time driver anymore. I'll hopefully be focusing on my YouTube channels, and I'll supplement my income with Uber and Lyft where I need to, where like, okay, I want to get some new equipment for YouTube. Let me go and drive some hours with Uber and Lyft. I'm going to be debt free. So the amount of money right now, my mortgage is like $950. And me and my wife, we don't split things 50-50. We put all of our money in one account. And so like, I don't need to make 950, you know what I'm saying? Like I could make 450 or 400 or whatever it is, 500. I don't have a car payment. So half of that mortgage at $500 is like majority of my bills. Yeah, I still have to pay electricity and whatever, food. Our budget for food is $300 for two people. So it would be 150. So what is that? 650 electricity and things like that. Let's just throw $200 for utilities, even though it's not that high. That's what, 850, you know? And like at minimum, like what I need at minimum is very, very low. I probably need $1,200 to get by at minimum. And that's per month. And it's by design. I'm intentionally paying off debt. I'm intentionally lowering my living expenses, and my living expenses will increase. What will happen is when we go to Vegas, I will sell this house. This house, we bought it for like $160,000. It's not paid off. I don't even know how much we owe on it, but we have a good amount, and it's currently worth about $260,000. So it's jumped up about $100K. We're just gonna take all of that, 100% of that equity, and use it as a down payment on the next house, so that regardless of interest rates, our monthly payment will still be as low as possible. And then I will look forward to paying that house off in probably less than 5 years. So even though my monthly expenses will be low, the way I have it set up now with my wife is, all right, I have my Rideshare business account, which is just a personal account that's where my Rideshare income goes into. My wife has access to it. And then we have our personal account, which is the money we use for non-business related things. I have it automatically set up to take out $1,200 from my Rideshare account every week. So I'm contributing on an average, if we're talking about a month that lasts 4 weeks, what is that? 2,400, 4,800. So I'm contributing about 5,000 a month to my personal account, in addition to whatever my wife gets paid. And that money goes towards paying off our bills, and everything that's left after that amount is being thrown at debt. So we paid off our credit cards. We don't even use them anymore. We paid off our cars. We have two. And then the only debt we have left is student loans. And once that's gone, we're going to be really good. But the money that I keep in my business account, like, because I make more than $1,200 a week. So, for example, if I made $3,000 in 1 week, the money that's left over, that's going towards my potential new car fund, right? And when I say new, I mean new to me. I don't plan on buying a car right now, but if something were to happen to my current car, I want to start saving up to be able to either have enough to fix it. Right? If my transmission goes out, or if I blow an engine somehow, I want to be able to be in a position to decide, is it time to buy another used car cash, or should I just fix this car with the cash that I have? So I'll probably what I'll do is I'll keep whatever money's left over in my account after that $1,200 that goes into the personal account. I'll keep it in there, and if nothing happens to my car, and I see that our student loans, let's say our student loans drop to $20,000, and I have $20,000 in my Rideshare account, I'm just going to take that amount and throw it at the student loans, because even if my car were to explode the next day, I don't have any payments. You know, I can pivot. And on YouTube, I don't make a ton of money on YouTube. I probably make about $500 a month directly through YouTube. I have one editor who helps me out. I literally just split 50% with him. He should be making more money overall, but I don't want to have to go and work more hours with Rideshare to pay for YouTube stuff. That's counterintuitive to me. So I said, hey, you want to work with me, you can. Um, you're just gonna have to agree to take. I'll give you 50%, and it's not as if he's doing 50% of the work. It's just where I'm comfortable. Like I think that that's fair, even though I'm doing majority of the work. He probably does 50% of the edits, but running a YouTube channel isn't just about the edits. It's setting up this podcast. It's me performing. It's me doing the reading. It's me organizing. There's a lot more to it. So I make about 500 with YouTube, and then I'll probably make about $500 to $600 in other YouTube adjacent things. Like it could be affiliate links. I used to do sponsorships. I stopped because I have to be careful about who I mix my brand with. So I've like just kind of push all the sponsors aside. I've been doing affiliate links with partners that are like open. So like for example, Solo has an affiliate link that anyone can use. It's not just open to me. So it's not like I have a special relationship with these companies that like Play Octopus is $25 per driver referral. It's not a lot, but that's the same referral I'm using is the same referral you have access to. And that's also really important because I need to make sure that I'm not being biased. There's a level of bias that will creep in if I have to make a review about something or a review from a company that's paying me somewhere else. So I want to make sure I keep clean there. And then overall, just from a marketing perspective, a YouTube perspective, I'd rather just sell my own products, which is why I have my spreadsheet. I'm working on a couple of other sheets to help track bonuses that I'm going to eventually put out there as well. So that's just a little inside. But if I were debt free today, my YouTube income is already enough to meet my minimum bills. And that was always the goal. My goal is, as I try to start a family, I don't have any kids yet, is that I can put myself in a position to be home as much as possible. And that's something I started working on 3 years ago. So I didn't wake up one day and everything was great. This is a long-term thing, and you gotta get started as soon as possible. The quicker you get started, it's like Dave Ramsey says it best. You have to live like no one else so that someday you can live and give like no one else. You see what I'm saying? A lot of people think that because you're making sacrifices to your living standards, that's your plan for the rest of your life. No, I will sacrifice 2 to 3 years of my life financially and just go hard and be intentional about my money so that I can do whatever I want in the future. And that's what I want all of you to do. I want you guys to use rideshare as a stepping stone into that next thing. Now, some of you want to be long-term drivers. That's fine. But for me, that's not the next thing. And for most of us, we fell into rideshare driving. We didn't grow up saying this is what we wanted to do. So I just want to help people bridge that gap. Okay. I'm gonna have to, that was fun. I'm happy I was able to get that off my chest. But let's it's 3:53, and at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, there is another podcast that I like to watch, and you guys should watch too. So let's keep moving. I'm gonna keep moving. We're gonna talk about Tesla. Tesla. Hold on, I'm looking for it. Okay, so I made a video with some information that Tesla Rideshare Chronicles gave me a couple weeks ago, and I had to make some assumptions just to make it faster, so I can go through the video based off of the information I could find. But he updated me with more accurate information, and it's important for me to point it out because we'll see if it changes how I feel. Um, so generally speaking, I just kind of went through the Tesla page. I looked at their interest rates. I looked at what he could be paying, this, that, and the third, and I kind of just decided that buying a brand new Tesla just didn't make any sense. And here's what the updated information is. He says, so broski, here's my paid. Hold on, let me see if I can zoom in a little more. There we go. So broski, here's my breakdown of what I paid. $48,880. But he did get some tax credits. He got the $7,500 federal tax credit, which he doesn't have to pay back. And California at the time, this is no longer available, gave him $12,500 in state and other incentives in California. So that's pretty good. He was able to pay he got his car for $28,880. And then he follows up with the fact that his payment on his car is now $250, which I think that's pretty good. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And his insurance is $150 a month. I assume that he got insurance through Tesla. And if you're able to get it through Tesla, that's dope. This is just an assumption. He's here in chat. He can answer for us. But when I pulled up the Tesla insurance amounts, it was way higher, talking like $400. So it just depends. You could have gotten it at a time where insurance was also cheap. But he says, yeah, not all 40K is from rideshare. He's talking about his mileage because I told him that I made the assumption that all of the miles were from rideshare just to put the math in his favor. So he's just responding to that. He says, yeah, not all 40K is from rideshare, of course, but for 6 months compared to my Camry hybrid, which was almost 2 times what I pay now in gas compared to electricity. So he's just saying that if he compares the amount he's spending for fuel, we'll call electricity fuel here for his Tesla, he's paying less, like half of what he was paying for gas. Of course, you'd still have to compare that how much did this car cost versus how much you would have saved with your Camry, but we also don't know what happened to his Camry. Something could have happened. He says, I'm not stupid, bro. My car is almost paid off anyways, which is this is impressive. I'm going to continue reading this comment and then we'll double back on why it's impressive. I love the back and forth debate. It's interesting from perspectives. I took the risk, but I have saved up for a battery because it's expensive. But at over 120 miles, at over 120,000 miles, I could just keep it and put a new battery and still keep my asset since it works. Which I think that's a good point. That eventually you will have to replace your battery. Doesn't matter if it's a hybrid or a Tesla. It's just that when it is a Tesla, from what I understand, it's more expensive, and that could change in the future. It could become cheaper. Battery tech is improving. And he makes a really good point. If the shell of his car is fine and every, let's say, 5 years, he needs to upgrade his battery by paying $10,000, that's actually a really good point that I actually think about today, because instead of having to buy a brand new car for $10,000, if you're able to just have a car that's mechanically sound, but it just needs a new battery, that's something that you should highly consider. I think that's actually a good strategy. I know that there's some electric company car in China. I don't think they made it out of bankruptcy, but they would have battery swapping stations where you just go to the station, instead of waiting for a charge, they would just swap your battery. So thinking about that in the grand scheme of rideshare driving, okay, I can understand that, right? And plus, he is aware of it and he is saving for it. That's also very important. So I respect that. He says, yes, I agree. You don't need a new vehicle if you don't know your market and the mindset of paying it off as fast as you can. Much love, broski. So I do especially agree with this. I try to tell people, do not buy a brand new car. Don't even buy a used car. If you've never done rideshare before and you're thinking about making a purchase for rideshare, you need to go rent a car. Even if you lose money renting the car, you need to rent a car for a week and determine that this is for you. There are things that are not related to finances that happen within rideshare that some people aren't comfortable with. Some people aren't comfortable with having 4 people in their car. Or they're not comfortable with someone sitting behind them. They're not comfortable that they have to have a level of customer service. They're not comfortable with how people treat their cars. It's not for everyone. I think those are some not great reasons to not make money, but it's not for everyone. So what I like the most here is if his down payment, if his monthly payment is $250, that means he put a very, very good down payment down, or made, like, the amount of equity in his car is probably positive from the standpoint of the car is probably worth more than he owes, I would hope. But it looks like he put a very decent down payment. I personally still wouldn't do this, but the way I handle finances, it's not the golden rule. I'm anti-debt right now. I did buy my car using debt before I try to start fixing my finances. But if I had to buy a new car today, I would be paying cash. But me personally, from a strictly financial standpoint, right now, I wouldn't pay 30 grand for a car. Now, 30 grand for a new Tesla, that's a good deal. That's straight up good deal. But let's say that, okay, so to clarify, I wouldn't spend that much money on a car right now because I'm like super adverse to risk right now. There might be a time period where my debt's paid off. I have my 6-month emergency fund. And, you know, I can start thinking about business and mixing it with pleasure. At that point, I would save up 30 grand and buy this car. I think it's a good deal, but I'm not at that stage yet. And I think that spending too much money on a car for me at this stage will prevent me from getting to the stage where I should be able to do this. Right? Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So I obviously disagree with the fact that he used that to do it, but you know, that's a common thing. People use that. I think that as far as commonality goes, this is a good deal. You can't do it anymore. You can't get this 12,000 tax credit anymore. And on top of it being a good deal, he's putting in the work. He's driving enough to justify the purchase, and it seems like he's paying it down. He's aware of the risk and everything else that is associated with it. So it also looks like he was driving rideshare for a while before making this decision. So it looks like he didn't just use his emotions to make this decision. He looked at the math and he looked at the risk factors and he made a decision that he was okay with. And what I'll say is I'm always gonna talk about risk, even if I'm willing to take a risk or not willing to take a risk. I think it's important. You guys are adults. You know, you guys are gonna do what you want to do. You'll hear what I say. Maybe you'll think about it. But at the end of the day, you're gonna do what you're gonna do. And I feel like as a content creator, it is my job to kind of show you what you should be thinking about when making these huge purchases. You know, if you make a bad purchase, it takes a really long time to recover from that financially. So don't agree with the debt. I do think that 30 grand for a Tesla, a brand new Tesla, fantastic deal. And I'm happy, proud, and encouraging you to keep paying this off. I like your plan. I like your plan for you. It's not the plan for me, but I do respect it. I'm going to look in the comments just to see if you have any updates for me. So he says, my goal is to pay it off in a year, and it's looking like maybe 1 year and a half. That's still pretty good, bro. Like most people, you know, not only are their card terms, like I think the average term right now is 6 to 7 years, but most people will trade in their car and roll over the negative equity and just make it even worse. So the fact that you're able to pay it off, even a year was aggressive. I respect you for it. Year and a half, it's pretty good. CBO says, wishing you the best. You're very intelligent. I'm sure you'll be in a good position by the time you relocate. Thank you. I appreciate that. 100K delivery says, financial peace, baby. Yes, he gets it. He consumes some Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey's course is called Financial Peace University. If anybody wants it, I can get it for them for free. Just don't leave a comment in the live. I don't go back and check the live comments. When in any video, just come say, hey, let me get that link for Financial Peace University. There's a church here online that offers it for free, and they don't check for memberships. I can just send you the link. That's how I did it. It's pretty good stuff. Even if you're not Christian or religious or whatever, the financial information that comes from it is pretty good. Me and my wife use that as our like premarital counseling thing. Guy from the 504 says, would you make a car purchasing decision based on what it's eligible for, comfort, black, etc.? A Jetta isn't comfort and you do well. I just feel like comfort rides usually have better tips sometimes. Okay, I am going to tell you about a mistake that I almost made that would have pissed me off, and then I'll answer your question more directly. I tried to buy, let me see if I can, I have so many tabs. I don't want to create too many. All right, we'll turn this into a tab. Actually, no, I need this. No. All right, hold on. Give me a second. We'll get a brand new tab. And then I'm going to show you the car that I wanted to buy because I wanted to do Lyft Black and Black XL. This is before I started thinking about money. This was actually before. This is before I started doing rideshare officially. Like I knew I was going to do it, but this is before I actually tested my market and whatever. And so, what was it? It was the Audi Q7. I was going to get the Audi Q7. I was going to get it used, of course. And I was going to get the black, whatever. So it's about 30 grand, right? Rounding up, it's about 30 grand. And I recently realized Charleston Lyft types. That Lyft Black isn't even in my market. So I don't know if it was there before. I'm pretty sure it was because when I was looking at cars, I used the list that's on Lyft's website. So I think that at some point they got rid of black, and this is all we have now. As a Lyft driver in Charleston, this is all I qualify for. There's Lyft, XL, and extra comfort. I would have spent a lot of money getting an Audi Q7, and again, I'm not 100% sure if they had it and it went away. I'm pretty confident that's what it was. I would have been really upset if I paid all that money for a car and no longer had access to like the black status. Would have been really pissed off. So hindsight, I'm very glad that I didn't do it. And to be honest, I couldn't afford it. I was really stretching it, trying to come up with the down payment, and I honestly just couldn't afford it. So would I consider ride types when purchasing a car? Yes, I would. Um, I probably I'd have to figure out a way to rent a car to justify it. I'd probably it would be cool. It depends. It's a sliding scale. It's a sliding scale based off of my current financials, sliding scale based off of how much would the car that qualifies for extra comfort be, and then the sliding scale for is it worth it. Generally speaking, I would rather uh, pay a couple of $1,000s more to qualify for XL. If I could get a car that qualifies for XL and comfort, that's dope. But generally speaking, I feel like if your car is gonna sit 5 people, I feel like it may not be worth to do extra comfort. But I haven't looked at the numbers. I don't know what the average earning is for extra comfort. You know, so I would need a lot more information on that. Let me see if I can find something quickly. How much more do you make with extra comfort lift? I think this is for price. I don't want to dig too much into Reddit. Well, I won't stay here too long. This is price. I want to just keep more about extra. You know what? I don't think I'm going to get a good answer on that. So let's look at extra comfort vehicle requirements. Eligible vehicle. What are the requirements for extra comfort? To be eligible to receive extra comfort ride requests, drivers need to meet the following criteria: drive an eligible vehicle, complete 100 trips, maintain 4.85 or better, zero safety flags, no more than one cleanliness flag. And here's the list of eligible vehicles. So we have Acura, RDX, RLX, MDX, Integra. Wow, Integra, interesting. But see, I wouldn't buy a 5-seater Integra to do extra comfort. I'd rather just take that money and get the equivalent of an XL at that price point. Just because I know Integras can be up there, like a 2023 or newer Integra. So like that's that sliding scale that I'm talking about. I think the RDX, I could be wrong, is a 7-seater. How many seats? It's 5. So I'm pretty sure one of these might be the 7-seater. It's 5 again. But so here's what I would say. If I wanted to focus on getting a car that qualified for extra comfort, I would like for it to as well comfort to qualify for comfort, right? I don't know if that's an option. This looks like the 7-seater, the MDX. Yeah, so the MDX is the 7-seater. It's really expensive. The brand new was really, really expensive, but it says, let's see, 2022 MDX. That's I hate using Carvana. I'm gonna use Facebook. So give me a second to navigate. I want you guys seeing who my friends are. No, I'm just trying to protect their privacy. I don't really care. So we said what? MDX 2022. And then even if you get the 2022, who's to say it doesn't get disqualified next year? You know, it could be that the 2022 model is the model that meets the requirement and it'll be there for a couple of years, but there's no documentation on that. How would I know for sure, you know? So here it is. It's still a pretty expensive car. This one's not too bad considering it's a 7-seater and it qualifies. It's 31 grand used. I still at this stage of life, I wouldn't, you know. So the sliding scale, like I was talking about, yeah, this is not a bad price. Yeah, it does excel. Yeah, it qualifies for extra comfort. Yeah, it'll probably qualify for some good rides on Uber too. But the sliding scale that's messed up right here is that one, I'm not gonna use that, and then two, I don't have 30 grand to buy that car. Even if I had 30 grand right now sitting, I still wouldn't because I have like about 100K between me and my wife in student loan debt. So I don't want to, there's no reason for me to sacrifice all that money because before I even break even, I have to go out and make $30,000. You see what I'm saying? So like it's not a simple answer. There's a sliding scale that's involved. Audi. I'm just looking around at this point. So you see the Q7 does qualify for comfort and it would also qualify for XL. But you know what's crazy? The Jetta does qualify, just not my Jetta. I don't I don't understand. I don't understand how they, and you know what? I have a 2017 Jetta. So I don't even know why it doesn't qualify. So what I would say is if if you have a car that's currently worthy of driving, I think as if you're not in a great financial position, I think you just push through with the car you have. Because if you go and get a new car, you have to make that much money in that car just to break even. You know, if it's $20,000, you have to drive $20,000 worth of dollars, not including expenses, just to break even. You know, so the car you have now is probably the best car you have. And if you're in a position in the future where you just have to upgrade, or you're in a financial position to where you can start, you know, doing what you want without worrying too much about the financial repercussions, then you could do it. But I would, Tristan Thomas, if I had to focus on, I guess if my sliding scale for what I'm able to do says I can get a 2018 Jetta or a 2017 Jetta, I would get 2018 if it's a few $1,000s more, nothing crazy. But it's all a sliding scale. It's a good question. It's a really good question. But you know, just 1 year too late. You know, maybe I could trade in my car's paid off. Maybe I could trade in my 2017, get a 2018. Hopefully, it's like a $5,000 difference. Maybe that is something I could consider. Let's see. Let me. I'm gonna go back to Facebook. Let's see. 2018 Jetta. Um, I I guess I'd have to figure out how much my car is worth. Hmm. Okay. Why not? 413. I'll do this, but then when I'm done, we're switching topics. I don't care what you guys are saying in the chat. We're switching topics after I look up my value for the Kelly Blue Book of my car and compare it to if it's worth it to trade it in and getting a used car. Some of these prices look really good. Like if this is true, 2018 Jetta 1.4, 62,000 miles for 10 grand, that's something I might consider. In fact, I'm actually really excited to go and do this now. So let's go Kelly Blue Book. I assume you guys know what Kelly Blue Book is, but Kelly Blue Book is a great way to get a quick determination on how much your car is worth. So I can show you, I guess. Make model. I have a 2017 Volkswagen Jetta. I I, I don't know my mileage off my head, but because I track my mileage, I don't have to go too far to see. So this is what my mileage is right now: 137,821. I'll just go and copy it. That's my zip code. I'm actually not quite sure which one I have. It might be the lowest price, and it's probably the lowest price. I'm gonna put basic options. The hell is Hillhold is this? Okay. I'm not gonna do all that. I'm just gonna I have the I guess silver is what I have. Selling my car. Selling your car will always make you more money than trading your car. So always make that your primary option. And if you can't sell it privately, then you can trade it in. But just remember, the dealerships buy your car because they want to resell it for a profit. So they will offer you less than your car's value, which I don't think is unfair, but just something to be aware of. So it says, what condition is my car in? I think my car would sit here very good. Um, but let's assume the worst. We'll assume the worst. I like to stack the odds against me, so we're gonna use fair. So my car right now is worth in the middle $4,066. I bought my car for 13 grand, so it has depreciated about $10,000, but it's made me over $100,000. Like I've had it for 3 years, and I'm grossly underestimating my 3 year income because I don't know what that number is, but I promise you it's over $100,000. So my car's made over $100,000, even though it's depreciated about $10,000. I think that's fine. A lot of people are over worried about depreciation, and those people are usually people who buy brand new cars or they buy cars that they shouldn't have bought, especially for rideshare. So, whatever. It's all good. So it's worth about 4,000, and then it has 136,000 miles on it. So here's an example. I probably wouldn't do it with this car. It has a little it has more miles than my current car, right? But it's for $8,000. So was that $4,000? I could pull $4,000 out of my bank account, sell my car for what it's worth, and then go buy this. Of course, the problem you have with buying someone else's car is that it was someone else's car. You don't know if they're keeping up with the oil changes and things like that, which is why I would focus on a lower mileage car like this one. This one is actually a pretty good deal. So if I wanted to upgrade to comfort rides, this is 62,000 miles, which if I were to, sell my car for 4,000, come up with what, about 6,000 to go and buy this car, I would be able to, my car has double the mileage this car has. So I could squeeze more mileage out of it. As long as this car was well taken care of, it'd be pretty good. It says clean title, no mechanical issues, right? So, that's something to consider. But then in my math, I would have to figure out, is it justifiable to take a $6,000 hit for comfort rides? Will comfort rides pay me $6,000 more than regular rides over um, a respectable time frame? Like if I have to drive for 2 years in order to make up that difference, was it worth it? I don't think so. But if driving for 6 months bridges that gap, and then after that 6 months it's profit, I would consider it. But I guess the problem that I have now is that I don't know what the pay difference between comfort rides and regular rides really look like. That's one thing. And then the second thing is, we know Lyft and Uber change their ride types every now and then. What would happen if they changed the ride type before I could recoup the amount? A really good question. Never really thought about this before. Super curious now. Like there's some good things here. But look at this one. 25,000 miles, 14 grand. That's pretty good. And this would qualify for comfort, and this is not the trim. This is not a base trim. I will say, whenever you're looking at used cars, make sure that the title is clean. See, this one does have a rebuilt title, which is why the mileage is so low. Um, yeah, pretty good. A very, very good question. I'm gonna move forward without looking at the questions because I'll get tempted to talk to you guys too much. I'm gonna drink some water and then we're gonna start talking about Minneapolis. Okay, talking makes me out of breath. Actually, before we talk about Minneapolis, for those of you who are in Baltimore, I guess for all of you who don't know, something happened in Baltimore this morning, and I'm going to show you what happened, and then we are going to talk about it from a rideshare perspective. I'm going to show you the video. It's nothing crazy. It's nothing squeamish, but it's real life. And it's going to have an impact on that entire city, especially for rideshare drivers for a while. Yikes. Okay, I found it. Right, so this is on Twitter. It's just a video. This happened, I believe, this morning. A cruise ship crashed into a bridge. It's going to change the landscape for rideshare drivers in that city. And so I am going to give some advice to drivers in that city. Of course, I don't live there, so my advice is going to be limited. But we'll see. It's sped up. I can't really zoom in any more than that. But you can see it hits the bridge collapsed. Why are they going backwards, bro? They're just trying to make the video long enough. So it hits the bridge. Are they not showing it? Oh, there it is. And then it drops. Let me see if I can find a normal speed one. It's not really that great. Twitter, I hate Twitter sometimes. So this is a good shot of it once the sun came up. And there were people on that bridge when it hit that bridge. So hopefully they're okay. Hopefully they're alive. Hopefully they made it out. And if they didn't, prayers for that family, man, for those family members. But you see the bridge collapsed. So here's an article that kind of describes what happened. Commuters directed away from Key Bridge after collapse touched down I-695 Southeast Corridor. You can see the ramp up to the bridge and then the bridge just in the water. Maryland commuters are being asked to avoid Interstate 695 Southeast Corridor after Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge was struck by a cargo ship and collapsed early Tuesday, sending the bridge and cars into the Patapsco River. The Maryland Transportation Authority issued a traffic advisory asking motorists to use Interstate 95 and 895 as alternate travel routes. For drivers who are watching, keep that in mind. I-695's outer loop is closed at Maryland Route 10, which is exit 2, and the inner loop is closed at Maryland Route 157 Peninsula Expressway, which is exit 43. The authorities said shortly before 7 a.m. So here's a map kind of detailing the significance of it all. So I guess this was like, if you're in this area or just in this area and you routinely need to get across this bridge, your commute time is going to explode. Now, thankfully, and this is for the drivers who are there, right now, the students are on spring break from what I've read. So traffic will be less than normal, but use this time to learn better routing to get the job done. My assumption here is that because this bridge no longer exists, rides are going to be on average longer. And when you have longer rides on average, that means there are less drivers available to take the next ride as quickly as previously. So my assumption here is that because of this, there are going to be bonuses that pop up on the map more frequently. And it's very possible Uber and Lyft, they're looking at this area. They're probably going to start incentivizing drivers to drive more by putting out ride challenges and things like that in order to deal with this. Now, if you can figure out a way to capitalize on the bonuses that will pop up as a result of this without having to sit in crazy traffic that will also pop up as a result of this, you could make some great money. I would have to live here to have a better answer. So you need to take what I just said and bridge that gap. Terrible wordplay, but bridge that gap and figure out how to make money from this. And I know it sounds insensitive of me. People have died, probably have died in this bridge. It's an inconvenience. It's a travesty. But there is going to be some kind of opportunity to make money, and that opportunity won't last forever. They're going to have a solution for this in time. And the earlier you put the pedals to the metal, you get out there, you start learning the new flows of traffic and things of that nature, you can make money from this. So you just got to take advantage of it. It feels bad saying that, but that's the reality. That's the truth. That's what's happening. It says lanes headed to the Key Bridge were closed in both directions, and authorities were rerouting traffic after the 948-foot cargo ship struck a support column on the 1.6 steel bridge Tuesday morning. There has been no impact to local or commuter bus routes so far due to the collapse, according to Veronica, a spokesperson for the Maryland Department of Transportation Maryland Transit Administration. That's a mouthful. Though the agency listed more than 30 affected routes. 30 affected routes, that's a lot. On a running list of service alerts on its website. Let's see what that website looks like. Let's see if that's useful for you guys. Not really. Oh, yeah. So it says the routes that are affected, but you'd have to be really in tune with what this means in your city. You'd have to be someone who's not just following GPS and actually knows your city very well. So you go check that out. I'm not going to read through it. Baltimore City schools are closed for spring break, so the impact of the school system is minimal, said City School spokesperson Sharon Christian. That doesn't mean next week, what you learn this week, only a percentage of it will be able to be applied to next week. But if you're able to scale the information you learn and the routes that you do, you'll be better off than someone who didn't. So go out there and start paying attention, start trying new things, like strategies that might not have worked before might work now temporarily, now that this bridge is down. So you should take this week to try a bunch of new strategies and see what you can use to really maximize your income based off of this that's happening. Several hours after the collapse, emergency personnel were searching for upwards of 7 individuals and had detected vehicles in the water using sonar, according to Baltimore Fire Department Chief James Wallace. The Key Bridge opened in March. We don't need the history of the bridge. Appreciate that. The Transportation Authority said vehicles carrying hazardous materials are going to go, well, okay, this doesn't, all right, I guess this might matter. The Transportation Authority said vehicles carrying hazardous materials, including propane, are barred from using the I-95 and I-895 tunnels through the harbor and should use the western section of I-695 around the tunnels instead. So let's look at this map real quick. See if we can make sense. So they're saying that I feel sorry for truckers. Truckers are going to start going along this route because they can't use the tunnels that go here, right? So that's something you need to consider into your strategy. Even if you don't drive in inner city Baltimore, if you use this in your strategy, you're going to have to expect higher levels of traffic in these areas. Now, if you, I'm assuming that trucks were allowed to cross this bridge before and they're no longer allowed to do it now. So I don't know what that really means for here, the traffic that has to go through here, but you need to go and figure that out, right? If you're in Baltimore, you need to go and figure that out. You need to bridge that gap. I need to stop saying that. Stop saying that. I'm gonna keep saying it. It says, welcome to the neighborhood, said Dunbar, who teleworkers, but it still makes frequent trips to see family and friends. Is this a different story? Did I scroll into a different story? No. All right, hold on. Let me get my bearings back. Okay, let's start from here. The Key Bridge collapse is sure to have a ripple effect on traffic well beyond Tuesday's commute. The bridge carried more than 1.4 million commercial and passenger vehicles in 2023, nearly 34,000 people a day, according to MDTA report. The bridge built to ease congestion at the Harbor Tunnel made up 9% of the MDTA's toll revenue in fiscal 2023. I think that's it. I'll try to pay attention to what the rideshare drivers in Baltimore are saying, see if I can figure out some strategy that they're using and pass it along to you. But he who figures out the strategy first is gonna make a lot of money from this, if possible. It's also possible that this is gonna harm your potential income. It's gonna make it harder to make money. That is a reality that I don't expect, but the possibility exists. And in that case, you really should go into what I call emergency mode. Cut your extra spending, pay the minimum on your debts, and start stacking up cash just until you see what really happens as a result of this. So I think that's very important. I just wanted to get that out of the way. All right, so this one, it's how to travel around the Francis. Do I need to go through this? I'll let this video play and we'll see what the news station over there is saying.
Of what happened when this vessel hit the Key Bridge. The weight that hit the Key Bridge, I just looked it up online. Empty, the ship weighs about 11,681 tons. A ton. Well, let's reference that map real quick there.
Go ahead. You're fine.
Well, you can see exactly where the collision with the Key Bridge basically took place almost dead center of the bridge. The damage to the bridge is not easily accessible from either the south or the north side. So that is going to be an issue. 695, a major road on the east coast of the United States, is seriously impacted. On the north side, basically from where Amazon has its facility now, you could almost say nautically Bear Creek, but figure Amazon all the way to the south side, just before Curtis Creek, the Curtis Creek drawbridge. That road is shut down.
About what kind of
So that's some information didn't have before. Amazon workers are gonna need a new route to get to work. So if you're regularly taking Amazon workers across that bridge, they still need to get to work, and they are gonna start paying a lot of money to get to work, and it might not even be worth it. So there are gonna be some disruptions in certain industries in that town that I didn't even think about until I saw that video. But you guys got it. It's your market. Do the work. The more legwork and preparation you're willing to do, the more money you're gonna make from it. Promise you that. Hopefully. I hopefully promise. Okay, so now I need to correct my math. I did some bad math to try to make up for some other bad math that the council did. So we know that the council wants to increase wages in Minneapolis, and they believe that the numbers that they have set will equate to $15.50 per hour. I made a mistake, and I'm going to make a commitment here to you guys to make that mistake less. And I impromptu compared one of the rides I took in my market and tried to apply their math to my ride in order to determine how much they would make per hour with their structure. The main problem, and I was called out for, appreciate you guys calling me out, I was called out for not considering time spent waiting by drivers, which is important, right? Drivers aren't taking rides 100% of their online time. Their active time is not 100%, right? So it was disingenuous of me not to point that out. And I have done the work to figure out how can I make that math more accurate. So I did figure it out. I got some cool data sources, and we'll kind of walk through it right now. Let me make sure I have everything where I need to be. Okay, so this is kind of a recap. The ride that I did was for $10.08 right here. Let me see if I can zoom in a little more. Give me a second. Just messed it up. Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is the base fare that I made for a ride. I took all the bonuses off of it. I made $10.08 on a ride that lasted 24 minutes and went 12.46 miles. And I asked it to show me the following without over explaining the math. So I have a couple different scenarios. I have 4 scenarios. I'm not going to read them verbatim, and I'll explain what the scenarios are. Scenario 1 is, so Minnesota State Department did a study to determine how much rideshare drivers would need to make in order to qualify for $15.50 per hour. And in their numbers, with their study, they're saying that it would be 89 cents per mile and 49 cents per minute at minimum, right? So I have the math done to account for that. For scenario 2, I asked, how much would that be with the council's consideration? The council wants $1.40 per mile and 51 cents per minute. So we're going to work through that as well. And that's just based off of the ride that I took, right? We're kind of doing that for fun, but it would be more accurate to use averages from Minneapolis in order to come to a more concrete understanding of what the hourly actually works out to considering these different pay ranges, right? That's fair. So the first two are just for the ride in my market, but the next two are for the averages in their market. So we'll walk through it. With this first one, it says how much would I have made if I were paid 89 cents per mile and 49 cents per minute for the same ride? Once that calculation is done, convert that to an hourly wage and then lower that amount by 12.8%. Why am I lowering it by 12.8%? I'm going to show you why when I find it. So this is one of my favorite tools right now. It's called Google LM Notebook. It is where you can upload your own sources and then you can ask the AI questions and it will only look at the sources you've given it. So the only source that I have here is the TNC driver earnings analysis that the Minnesota State Department did. So that's the only document that is here. So we're going to be using data that comes from that document. Of course, you can disagree with the legitimacy of that document, but I think that this is the best information that we have as far as Minnesota goes. You can be conspiratory if you want. I understand that, studies can be altered, information can be altered. I get all of that. But if you're going to suggest that, then what I would like from you is to tell me what is a better source of information. If you want to link it, that's fine. I will consider it. But for this segment, this is the study we're going to use. And so the first thing we're going to ask is how much time does a driver spend in P1? I'm going to explain what P1 means in a second. Oops. So it says drivers spend an average of 12.8% of their working time in P1 in the Twin City metros, which I assume is Minneapolis, and 20.1% in greater Minnesota, which I assume is the outskirts. However, the council's decision, to the best of my knowledge, only goes for the city, to the best of my knowledge. So what is P1? What does that mean? Let's ask. What is P1, 2, and 3? You might have heard this be talked about as YouTubers discuss certain things, but P1, P2, P3, for P1 time is when a driver is logged into, oh my God. P1 time is when a driver is logged into the app and waiting to accept a ride offer, right? That's P1. P2 is when a driver has accepted a ride and is on their way to pick up a passenger. P3 is when a driver is transporting a passenger from the pickup location to the drop-off location. So pretty cool. They've divided up our segments and called P1, P2, P3. Don't quite know what P means. I'm assuming it's position 1, position 2, position 3. Insurances use this. This is important information that drivers should know as we're walking forward and learning about all these legal talk and insurance talk. So that means, according to this study, drivers spent an average of 12.8% of their working time waiting for a ride. I didn't have that information when I made my my blunder last week, and I apologize. I have it now. So now we can implement that into our math as we try to figure out what this new pay increase would actually look like in reality, or as close to reality as possible. So let's flip over back here. So you can see, here it is. Once that calculation is done, convert that to an hourly wage and then lower that amount by 12.8%. So we're lowering that estimation. It's not an estimation. We're lowering that figure by 12.8% because we're going to assume that for that hour of that hourly wage, 12.8% of that time is spent not making money because that driver is waiting. It says then subtract the average amount of 31 cents per mile, convert it into an hourly form for the answer. So this 31 cents per mile, that's how much we're going to use for expenses. The document I just showed you, this study, didn't do a great job of identifying how much drivers are spending on expenses per mile. So I had to use a Lyft study, and You can say that they're biased. You can say this, that, and the third, but they include their mythology here. They include the breakdowns of what they looked at, and I think it's very reasonable. So let's look at what they think expenses per mile are. You can see they have a little breakdown of a table. They went in. They did a good job. They went around and figured out what are like the average expenses for different car types. Like it's a really good white paper to read, whether you hate Lyft or not. If you think this isn't good information to use, point me in the direction of better information. So the average for a medium SUV, 37 cents. Medium sedan, it says 30 cents. I know it's small. Can't really see it for you guys. You guys just gonna have to trust me. So we used the average of 31 cents per mile. So what to put this into plain English, this is gonna calculate how much money would I have made per hour considering what the government is suggesting for the pay ordinance, what the council is suggesting for the pay ordinance, and then it's also going to subtract the average spent per mile on expenses, and it's going to also consider the amount of time drivers spend waiting for a ride. Right? That seems fair, right? If I'm missing something or not thinking about something, let me know. I'm assuming taxes aren't considered here. So outside of that, this is what we have, and then we have 4 different scenarios. So here's the answer. So for number 1 scenario, where I compared my ride with my numbers to what I would have made with the mayor's suggestion of what is it, 89 cents per mile, I would have made $20.76 per hour. Using the council's suggestion of the ordinance that was passed that goes into effect in May, I would have made $34.66 per hour. Now, the council, in their own words, have stated that this change that they have made is supposed to have a minimum floor of $15.50. We can see that is not the case based off of everything I just told you, based off of the ride that I took. But that's not a good apples to apples comparison, because the kind of rides I might get in my market may not be representative of the kind of ride they would get in Minneapolis. But that's what 3 and 4 deal with. For 3, using the mayor's suggestion of the study, it says earnings per ride. Before I even break that down, I was able to find out how much the average driver drives in mileage, and how much the average ride is in time, right? So just to prove it to you, because I don't want to be back here again. Let me see, where's that notebook? It's over here. So let's ask, how many miles and how long is the average ride? I don't have to put the state because it's going to refer to the PDF document. The average TNC trip in Minnesota in 2022 was, I don't want Minnesota, I want Minneapolis. Let's see if it has the difference. The average Twin Cities metro area TNC trip in 2022 was 7.87 miles and 14.64 minutes. Now, I got to make sure my prompt lines up with that. Let me okay, so hold on. I did use the Minnesota in my prompt, so I'm gonna have to redo the prompt. So I did make a mistake. I caught my mistake. Give me a second. I'm gonna fix it. Okay, I'm not having a good time here. I don't want to waste too much time. What I'll do is I'll recalculate it and I'll put it in the comments when I post this video. But hold on. I've lost my spot now. Okay, but if we're gonna use the averages of, so the averages, hold on, let me fix my screen. So I'm gonna use the Minnesota averages, and I'm gonna be okay with using them because it makes it harder to make my point. If I were to use the average trip in Minnesota is shorter, like in Minneapolis is shorter than in the suburbs, and shorter trips will give a better rate per hour. So I'm okay for now using the Minnesota averages because it would produce numbers that counter the point I'm trying to make. So I'm gonna just stick with it. I don't want to get too lost right now. I'm already lost. I don't want to get any more lost. All right, so here we go. So we're gonna stick with those numbers. That's my mistake. I'll fix it. I'll leave an edit in the comments when I post this video. But if we're gonna use the mileage of 89 cents per mile that the study says it would need to equate to $15.50 per hour, we'll kind of walk through the math here. It says earnings per ride, 89 cents per mile, and they multiply that by the average amount of miles per trip, which is what we just got from here, right? And then it shows the hourly rate calculation here, and it shows that they would have made $25.31 per hour. And then once you have that number, we reduce that by 12.8% because that's the average time spent waiting for a ride. So we shouldn't calculate income for that. So it does the math here, and it says that the average made per hour after waiting for a ride is $22.06. But we need to take it one more step further, and we need to minus expenses. So the average expense per mile for the greater Minnesota is going to be $17.32 per hour. That's with the pay structure of 89 cents per mile. So we've determined that with the pay structure of 89 cents per mile, the average trip length, the average trip pay, and the average time spent waiting without a trip would come in at $17.32 per hour, which is more than the $15.50 per hour goal, right? That sound? We're on the same page there. So when we do that same exact math, but apply the council's rate that goes into effect in May, you get $30.13 per hour. It's the same math. Here's the earnings per ride. Here's the hourly rate. Here's reducing it by 12.8%. And then we minus the expenses per hour based off of the mileage that's given us. We get $30.13 per mile. That is still double what the council said it should be. And I want to be clear here. I am not saying, nobody's saying, right? Uber, Lyft, and Mayor Frey and the Waltz, the governor, they all agree, or all have publicly agreed that a pay increase should happen. In fact, the mayor, the governor, Uber, and Lyft, they countered and offered, I think it was $1.20 to the $1.40 that they were offering. And the council said, no, we're not going to do it. That was before the study came out. Now that the study is out, and unless there's some big blunder I'm making that I'm not immediately seeing, and if you see something, let me know in the comments. This is double what the council thinks the minimum should be. So if they were to enact $1.40 per mile and 51 cents per minute, the average driver would make $30 per hour. That's pretty dope. I make more than $30 per hour. If drivers can make more than $30 per hour, that's cool. That's great. That's fantastic. But the council said this should be $15.50. So when I previously did this and I made my mistake, this number is still closer to my mistake than it is to what they think it should be. So I'm here for accuracy. I've always maintained that they should, before voting, wait for the study, because you're gonna have accurate solutions when you have accurate numbers to work on. And I still maintain that their math was worse than the math I used last week. This is double $15.50. And I'm not saying that they don't deserve that amount of pay. I'm not. I'm just highlighting that this is not $15.50. It is double that. And then on top of that, this is the minimum that they would make. This isn't the cap. This isn't the sky. This is the minimum. This is before bonuses. This is before any of that. And there is a part of me that wishes drivers could make great pay without bonus incentives. That would be fantastic. That'd be great. But I just want to point out, I'm not saying that it shouldn't be there or it should be there. I am pointing out this is at minimum and this is without bonuses. I've been having some interesting debates over on Twitter. You guys should definitely go follow me. As long as you're respectful, I'll go back and forth with you. And I've found some like 95% of the people I deal with on Twitter are very respectful. But what I've realized is that majority of the people believe that you can't increase wages infinitely, right? At some point, it's going to break something. Most people can agree with that. The disagreement here, even with the mayor, with the council, with Uber and Lyft, is how much before it breaks. And I have found that because I have been opposing this ordinance, right? People assume it's because I'm trying to protect Uber and Lyft. No, I assume that anyone who's trying to increase pay for drivers is doing it for the driver, even if their suggestion might break the system. I'm not assuming that they're trying to intentionally break the system in a way that would harm drivers. No, I think that increasing it too much will harm drivers. So the reason why I don't support the $1.40 per mile is because I think, based off of what's out there, right? This is my opinion. This is not necessarily fact. It's not gonna be fact unless proven. I think that is gonna have an adverse effect on the drivers in that market, right? But I also believe that there should be protections from Uber and Lyft. Like having a minimum wage floor, I'm not against that. I want to be super clear here. I've always maintained the position that I am against the amount that they're trying to increase it by. And through this math that we just did, even if it's not 100% accurate, it's still double what they said it is. And I think that doubling the pay in a short period of time is going to have a negative impact on drivers. I have a video coming out for Minneapolis drivers on things that they should be doing. And I'll briefly mention it here. You guys should be in emergency mode. The reality is, don't really know if Uber and Lyft are leaving. I have some more stories about the council that's going to make this whole thing even more confusing. But there's a chance that even if this goes through, and I'm right, and I don't want to be right, I want to be wrong, because if I'm wrong, drivers will be making a great amount of money and they'll be happy, right? Passengers might pay more, whatever. Uber and Lyft might have to take less, whatever. But if I'm wrong and drivers are making good money, I'm okay with that. I'd prefer that to happen. But I try not to confuse what I think will happen with what I hope will happen. I hope drivers are able to make great money and there's no disruption in their market. But based off of perception, based off of the information that's out there and the conclusions that I've made, I'm not God. I can't predict everything. But based off of that information, I don't think it'll go very well. I don't. So drivers should just be paying the minimum on their debt, on their bills, and stacking up money between now and May 1st, probably between now and the end of the summer. Because one, we don't really know what's going to happen May 1st, right? Here's why I say that. Gotta find it first. Hold on, give me a second. Okay, here it is. So this came out 6 days ago. It's moving very rapidly. It says Minneapolis City Council may reconsider rideshare ordinance that prompted Uber and Lyft to threaten to leave the city. I'm going to read through the story. I'm going to give you my thoughts. Then I have some comments for some other YouTubers that have been covering this story as well. A controversial minimum wage ordinance that prompted Uber and Lyft to announce they will cease operating in Minneapolis in May could be up for reconsideration at the council. An agenda for Thursday's meeting notes Councilmember Andrea Jenkins introduced a notice of intent to move reconsideration of Ordinance 2024-009 at the April 11th, 2024 meeting, just a couple of weeks before May, in which this ordinance will go into effect. The ordinance, as passed, ensures rideshare drivers receive at least $1.40 per mile, 51 cents per minute, and $5 per ride. Drivers are also entitled to 80% of any cancellation fee charged to a rider. That sounds nice. The city council passed the ordinance March 7th, and Mayor Jacob Frey vetoed it the next day. The next week, the council voted to override Frey's veto. It's a very, very good summary. This would be cool. I think passengers have too much of a grace period for cancellations, and I'm down with this. 80% of cancellation fee charged to a rider. I'm down with this. I like it. I like it. It's a little much, but I like it. Uber and Lyft have said that their business will leave the city on May 1st when the ordinance is set to go into effect. Lyft said that the ordinance makes our operations unsustainable, while Uber said it will put drivers out of work. Uber plans to leave the entire metro area, including the airport, while Lyft has only indicated it will shut down operations in Minneapolis. Frey said he supports raising drivers' wages, but not this specific ordinance. And that's my stance as well, right? So if you disagree with me, that's fine. But just understand that the reason why I don't support this ordinance is because I think it will hurt drivers. All right, if you want to believe something else, you're welcome to do so. But I'm just going to copy and paste the timestamp of this video where I make it very clear what I believe. He cited a state report that shows drivers need 89 cents per mile and 49 cents per minute to make minimum wage. We just walked through that. The proposal the council put forward was wrong. Frey said their stated position was that this was a way to get rideshare drivers to a minimum wage. In fact, there is a substantially lower rate that will both get drivers to a minimum wage and have expenses covered. After Jenkins' notice of intent, Frey said he was grateful to the council members Jenkins and Palmicianos, okay, I like that name, for their partnership and willingness to bring this back to the table. Thus far, the council has been unwilling to engage all relevant parties in developing the ordinance they pushed through. But there has been and still is room for compromise to ensure drivers who rely on rideshare services for a paycheck get a raise, and riders who rely on the service can continue getting around the city. It is unclear what exactly Jenkins' move indicates. The council passed the ordinance by a 9-4 vote and overruled the veto by 10-3. And this is really important. I want to point out that this is starting to look convoluted, but I also want to point out that the council didn't always fully agree, right? The majority agree, sure, but as you can see, the first time they voted for the ordinance, it went 9-3, and then they were able to convert one of those negative votes to override the mayor's veto 10-3. So that means someone switched. And I suspect it was Jenkins who switched. Jenkins is now calling for, I guess, another vote or another meeting to talk about this with the city council. So someone is flip-flopping, which is fine. I just want to point out that, when this was being passed, it seemed like there was a high level of solidarity, but that wasn't always the case. And I say that because of the next story. In the same breath, in the same week, Minneapolis Council plans to implement rideshare ordinance despite mayor and council member pushback. Let's try to zoom in here as much as I'm going to get. It says Minneapolis City Council member reaffirmed their support of the new rideshare bill Thursday that had drawn critiques from lawmakers, the mayor said, and now their colleagues. The ordinance, authored by council members Robin Wansley, Jamal Osman, and Jason Chavez, is intended to raise rideshare driver pay to meet the city's minimum $15.57 cents per hour minimum wage. Following the passage of March 14th, Lyft and Uber immediately released statements saying that they would leave Minneapolis once the pay requirement goes into effect. Before I even go any further, I want to express some displeasure I have, and I want to show it to you. Last week after my live, I joined the Rideshare guys live, Rideshare guy, and they had Eid Ali. He is the president of the association that's pushing for more wages, right? So he's not on the city council, but he's the head guy that has been pushing and advocating for drivers. I think what he's doing is cool. I think his job is hard, but I have a huge call out that I just it itches me, and I have to make it. So we're gonna look at a part of that segment. Give me a second to find it. I wasn't planning to do this. We'll go to their live.
Always open to negotiations and um, wonderful journey that I have been for the last 2 years with you and also with your audience. And yes, we care about the drivers. We have nothing against Lyft to stay in the market and just do what they were doing. Drivers to work for them, residents to get, we'll get way out to just kind of resolve some of these critical issues.
Absolutely. So I'm actually, hopefully one day I'll meet you in person, as opposed to on Zoom calls.
From every angle. That way, I believe that it's a way that we can bring something that will be helpful for both parties. And I'm optimistic. So I want Uber and Lyft to stay in the market and just do what they were doing. Drivers to work for them. Residents to get this. We're not
Trying to find the
folks to each other.
point
We're not
instead of what
each
he
other.
said.
I just started talking to some drivers, putting the community together, and look where they are, right? It doesn't happen overnight, but you were able to do it. Seattle was able to do it. It's doable, people. I mean, all I can say is it's doable. So in parting words, give us some wisdom, and obviously I'm going to be in touch with you, but I'm here to help you and Malda any way, shape, or form. I am a friend of Malda. I'm a driver's advocate because we've become friends over the last couple of months since I first interviewed you. Do you think there is a chance for cooler heads to prevail and everybody to sit down at the table and talk and to come to some resolution between?
Always open to, and that's what I've been saying.
Anything else to add to it? I mean, again, my hat off to you guys. Okay, you followed a simple model overnight, but I'm going to be in touch with you. But I'm here to help. Nobody likes to get slapped down by their bigger brother. Here's a question for you. We'll squeeze that in, but then I know you got to go. Question for E: does Minneapolis thing account for different tiers, X, XL?
If they accept the demands of the drivers here in Minnesota.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and I know I'm going to try to help you guys with all that, but here's the thing. We also have to think about the riders, right? I mean, look, I understand the rich folks who go, to bars and high-end restaurants and airport trips and things like that. They can afford to pay a little bit more, right? Personally speaking, okay, I'm sure you have as well. I read all 70 pages of that report that came out that was commissioned by the governor. So Uber and Lyft are saying that 89 cents a mile and 49 cents a minute is equal to minimum wage in Minneapolis, which is 1570 range, right? So I told Uber and Lyft, I go, well, what about a profit margin? I mean, you guys have a profit margin. You charge 100 for a trip, pay 50 out, right? That's your profit margin. How's that? Why do you think they're resisting so much that $1.40 and 51 rate? Because that's the profit margin. That's as far as I'm
concerned. Other markets, large markets that they have. All residents here in Minnesota. I'm not saying that they were perfect, but at least, they were taking care of a majority of the needs of the residents. So they're standby and have had a.
Is that in? But then I know you got to go. Question.
Recovery.
Yeah, I agree with that. And
the cab industry and those other majority of the needs of the residents. So they're standby. Majority of the needs. They're gambling.
The profit margin. That's as far as I'm looking at it.
Well, again, another wild guess is that maybe they think that based comparing to their market here to the.
I'm sorry to take so long, guys, but it's very important.
I think there's a good chance that, and I do have a very strong feeling.
To these drivers, I mean, I know you're in touch with hundreds, if not thousands of them. May 1st, assuming they leave, how are these people going to make a living?
Okay, this is it. This is the question. We're running back a little bit. This is the $1 million question that itches my soul.
All stakeholders, obviously drivers, right? There's 10 to 12,000 drivers in Minneapolis or in the state of Minnesota. There was a governor's report that came out that put the numbers out. And it seems like a lot of these drivers are full-timers, like 30% or so. And they do 70% of the trips, just like, it is in most cases, 20/80 rule applies. What is going to happen to these drivers, Eid? I mean, I know you're in touch with hundreds, if not thousands of them. May 1st, assuming they leave, how are these people going to make a living?
Well, that's a very good question, and fair enough. Yeah, these drivers have been doing this for quite some time for a living, and the way the condition that they are at this moment by not making ends meet, and as you're well aware of, the report that was released by the state was mentioned that these drivers were getting underpaid for all of this time. So drivers are are out there trying to do their best and working many, many hours so that they're able to just kind of at least get enough to feed their families. It's really tough. So, in huge numbers every day, drivers come and tell me, is there any other opportunity? Is there any other place where I can go? So, yes, I would say when tough times come, there are always opportunities somewhere else. So if Uber and Lyft leave, there are so many other folks who are going to step in, and I do have a very strong feeling that um, that that some other entities will just replace. I'm not going to say that they're going to be taken care of 100%, but at least way better than what the situation is now.
Yeah.
Okay. My problem with this is that to some of you who are watching, this is new. This is something that just started. I've been covering this since last year, and it's been going on since before I covered it. I think that it is extremely irresponsible that this organization would make a change, right? So the change itself is fine. The change itself is fine. They wanted to do something. Uber and Lyft said, if you do this, this is how we're going to react. And from where I sit, it doesn't seem like this Molda has done enough, and the council is part of this problem too, done enough to find alternatives, right? Uber and Lyft have been saying that they would leave for a while. This isn't brand new. You push this ordinance through, which whatever, I disagree with the ordinance, but you push it through and you don't have a backup lined up. Last week they said that there weren't any alternative rideshare companies that have applied to do rideshare in Minneapolis. There is one that popped up, and we'll talk about him in a second, like in a couple of minutes. But I'm very, very disappointed. Again, I disagree with the amount. This organization put in a lot of groundwork to pass something that they thought would benefit drivers. And in the midst of that, companies were saying that they're going to leave, and they've left other places before. If you truly believe that another company can come in and fill that gap, I just think it was so important for you to be ready, right? A couple months ago, when they first got this threat, they put out a statement saying, that's okay, you want to leave, bye. We've got backups. And even then, I criticized them for saying, if you have backups, you should have been building that up ahead of time, right? I said that in the past. You can find it on my different videos. I have maintained this stance when it was hard to maintain this stance, right? Everything that I currently believe, it's hard to believe it because what happens is I'll put content out and I know it's against the status quo. I know most people disagree with me. I know those videos aren't going to get views, but it's important for me to put that idea out there that just because this passes doesn't mean you're going to do well, and you should start protecting your finances. So it's super important for me to do that regardless of the views, regardless of, the sentiment. So like I'm playing bad guy right now, but I'm starting to feel like the longer this thing progresses, the longer this thing moves forward, the more information comes to light. My my gut feeling of me being the bad guy is starting to like dissipate, because how can you get this far and not have the most important part of figuring out an alternative solution for the drivers that you're fighting for? I think that's unfair. I think it's unfair for you to disrupt something for drivers without trying to get an alternative, right? Now, I will say they have recently been trying to make an improvement on trying to fill that gap, right? So I'm not going to harp too much longer on the fact that they haven't had something ready now, because they are trying to get something ready in the future, right? So I did find this today, right before the stream started. I'll quickly read it. It says Minneapolis Council Committee to consider funding to support new rideshare companies publicly or publicity to help Minneapolis riders make the switch. So this is cool. I like this, moving in the right direction. The Minneapolis Business, Housing, and Zoning Committee will consider allocating $150,000 for supplemental small business financing that could be used to support new and emerging rideshare companies and discuss ways to meet Minneapolis to publicize new rideshare options. Now, it sounds like debt. I wouldn't go into debt, but I like that this option exists for those who are trying to fill in that gap. When I did some research previously, we saw that it would cost about $45,000 just to get licensed in Minneapolis as a rideshare TNC provider. So giving people the ability to take out debt in order to fill that gap, that's cool. I wouldn't do it because the second Uber and Lyft change their mind and come back, they're gonna like get your business out of there, just like they did in Austin. But this is still a cool option because it shows that they're trying to get someone to fill the gap. So that's cool. It says earlier this month, a supermajority of Minneapolis City Council voted to require rideshare companies to pay rates equivalent to the municipal wage of $15.57. Uber and Lyft, the $2 billion rideshare companies that have been sole providers of rideshare in Minneapolis, have stated they will lead the entire metro area in response to being required to pay minimum wage equivalents. In less than 2 weeks since the passage of the ordinance, several rideshare companies have expressed eagerness to obtain license and begin operations in Minneapolis. These emerging and expanding businesses are ready to comply with the city ordinances and pay minimum wage equivalents, and the council members look forward to supporting them in providing the service. So cool. I respect you guys for now realizing this is a real issue and it's time to step up and do something. So I'm going to give you props there, right? I'm going to be harsh on you guys, but I'll give you props here as well. Last I heard, despite all these CEOs releasing a press release like Rides and Empower and all that, only one company has even applied to be a TNC provider, and it's not those companies. It's this guy. Meet Move, the Minneapolis-based rideshare company hoping to fill the gap if Uber and Lyft leave town. I think that this one is best if I just play the video instead of reading. It's probably gonna be an ad. There you go, it's an ad. There's 10 seconds on the ad. This guy, I don't have faith that he can get it up and running in a way that's meaningful by May, but I respect his hustle. He is the me version of what he's doing. He's a hustler and he's trying to get it done, and I respect it.
Say they will leave Minneapolis if a new ordinance boosting rideshare driver pay takes effect on May 1st. The city council could still reconsider, but council members say they're sticking to that ordinance.
Now a local rideshare company sees an opportunity. Ian Russell spoke with the man behind Move.
It's hard to visualize the American dream
I'll just keep working at this then.
until you see it in person, because in this basement in Woodbury
I take it seriously. I mean, this is the community I grew up in.
could be the future of ride sharing. At least that's the hope for Murid Amini.
I'm just moving at lightning speed trying to get this app out there to the users, hopefully far in advance of May 1st.
As Uber and Lyft look to leave the metro, including the airport, in a few weeks, Amini is working around the clock.
Less than 3 weeks ago, about 17, 18 days ago, went and started the company.
Move is his answer to Uber and Lyft, a rideshare company where drivers keep 80% of the profit. Already,
I will say, just because you get to keep a large percentage of profit doesn't mean it's going to equate to being more than what you would make with Uber and Lyft. Quick side stories that Rides, WRIDZ, is in Charleston. I had an account with them. I stopped paying into it. But they chose to put majority of the savings onto passengers, and there's no like bonuses, there's no challenges, there's nothing like that, which for some is okay, whatever. But the 100% that we keep with the Rides was still less than a lot of the equivalent rides to Uber and Lyft. Now, the passenger is saving money, which is fine, but percentages can warp math. So, that's not to say that that's what this guy is doing or his plan won't work the way he wants it to work. It could very well work to where the percentage is in favor of drivers and balances out for passengers. Who knows? But I'm just saying, don't lean one way or another just because you see that this company is giving 80% while Uber and Lyft is only giving 40%, because that 40% can still be worth more per dollar than the 80%. I just want to point that out.
out with an app and drivers signed up. Many of those drivers are immigrants, born in Afghanistan before coming here as a child. Amini can sympathize.
And I talk to these drivers and I get their stories, and it just reminds me of kind of what my parents went through.
While Amini is ambitious, there are questions about how realistic this is. Uber and Lyft are giants with thousands of employees working to keep their apps up. Move is much smaller.
I think it would be fair to say that it's a massive undertaking.
Sean Lancerman of Computer Forensics in Minneapolis knows tech and how hard replicating these companies will be.
The reality is they're not easy to develop, they're not easy to implement, and they're not easy or cheap to sustain.
Still, Amini is determined, a dreamer, ready to change the ride-sharing game in the Twin Cities.
And if Uber and Lyft want to pull out of the market and leave it wide open, then I and other rideshares are happy to go in, fill the space, and meet the need.
Respect it.
Now, Amini showed me his email chains with Minneapolis and St. Paul applying for his rideshare license. Minneapolis wouldn't confirm that Move has applied with them, but says one company has. And there are nearly...
Right? So, following the bricks, if Move has applied with Minneapolis, and of course it's right for the city not to, that's private information, I guess. They have said that only one has, and if that one is Move, Rides and Empower are just full of shit. I mean, not from a like business structure perspective, but what's the point of they're just hopping onto this scenario in order to garner press for their apps in different markets. If you really wanted to come here, your application should have been filed a while ago. So I'm still hoping that they do file. I'm still hoping as many alternative options do pop up for these drivers, because I want them to have as many options as possible, just in case things don't go the way they think it will.
10,000 drivers in Minnesota, only about 100 are currently signed up with Move. Now, there's a lot more questions about Move. We're answering many of them over on KARE11.com.
So it'll be interesting. This is an interesting thing to watch as it develops, right? All right, so I think that's all I have for Minnesota. I guess not. That's not true. This one is rideshare adjacent. This is Uber Eats based. We'll quickly go through it. We're gonna start doing some lightning round so that I can have time at the end to respond to all the comments. But there are some other smaller stories that are not Minneapolis related that will pop up, I believe, after this article. So it says Uber Eats to stay in Minneapolis even if rideshare service leaves, which important to know. And I'm gonna give you it's a video, so I can't even read it.
Even if Uber leaves the metro, Uber Eats food delivery will stick around. Uber and Lyft both say they will stop the rideshare portion of their service in 40 days. The threat to leave is because the Minneapolis City Council raised drivers' wages. The council could reconsider that raise next month before the deadline date. Meanwhile, they are working to remove licensing barriers for new rideshare companies to come to town.
Okay.
We'll see a lot of sunshine. So we're going to start the meltdown coming up on Thursday. We'll see a lot of sunshine. So we're going to start the meltdown coming up on Thursday and likely continue.
I don't know what happened. But Uber Eats will still be there. I think that if Uber and Lyft truly leave, and even if there are other apps that show up, I think that Uber Eats is going to become super saturated. This is an assumption. It's an opinion. I think that that's what will happen. I think the first thing most drivers will do who are Uber drivers is that they're going to try Uber Eats. And while I'm glad that it's staying, if you're in Minneapolis, super want to recommend signing up for all the apps, and because you don't know which one's going to be the breakout. You don't know which one's going to get ahead. We don't even know if Uber and Lyft are really leaving. That could change too. Just so much could change between now and then. It's going to be an interesting thing to watch. But let's move on from Minneapolis and quickly do some lightning round stories and to some things that I think are interesting. So, like I said before, food delivery is rideshare adjacent. It's not one-to-one, but I do draw on their examples to try to figure out what would the economics be of, increasing wages in a way that doesn't make sense. There's some ways to do it that I think make sense, like New York City. There's some ways where it kind of doesn't make sense. I'm not going to say Seattle doesn't make sense, but here's a story that details what Seattle is currently facing after increasing their wages in January. So it says Seattle law mandating higher driver pay is a disaster. Pretty straightforward title. Just 2 weeks after the law went into effect, Seattleites had to contend with $26 coffees and $32 sandwiches. So this seems to be more in the perspective of the orderer. In 2022, Seattle's city council passed an ordinance mandating a minimum earnings floor for app-based food delivery drivers in the city. The law finally went into effect in January 2024, but so far the main result has been customers deleting their delivery apps en masse, food orders plummeting, and driver pay cratering? Yes, cratering. I thought I was going to say catering. The ordinance, part of a legislative package called Pay Up, was passed under the banner of protective gig workers, right? I assume they passed it in order to favor gig workers, right? I don't, even if it's not working the way it was supposed to work, that doesn't mean I think they were doing it to harm drivers. By setting up a compensation floor for app-based delivery drivers based on miles driven and amount of time worked, the ordinance operates as a supremely complicated minimum wage. And they have to do it that way because we're independent contractors. The wage floor is based on a labyrinth calculations. The engaged minutes for drivers are multiplied by a minimum wage equivalent rate, which is then multiplied again by an associated cost factor. That is kind of too much. And then multiplied again by an associated time factor. Next, the sum is added to the total of engaged miles of drivers, multiplied by the standard mileage rate, and then multiplied once more by the associated mileage factor. It says, if you're lost, don't worry. The text of the ordinance itself literally does the math for you. I was getting stressed reading that. Herald a first of its kind legislative breakthrough when it passed. The first 2 months of ordinance operations have provided grim real-world economics 101 lesson. First, the delivery companies were forced to add a $5 fee onto delivery orders in the city to cover sudden labor cost increase. I want to talk about that for a second. The word I would use here is retaliation. And I have a lot of mixed feelings on this, right? I think that if a company can shoulder the burden of increased wages without increasing costs, they should do it, right? But not all companies can. And Sergio from the Rideshare guy made a great point that if you can't, then that is a problematic business model, right? So I sit in the middle of that. I kind of agree, kind of disagree. I'm still trying to figure out how I feel about it. But I'm very pro laissez-faire economics. I believe that some government protections is important, but for the grand scheme of it all, I think the less government interferes, the better overall. That's not 100% true. That's just where I lean in my belief system. And in order for us to consider this retaliatory, even if we consider it immoral, it's not illegal, right? Businesses all the time, when forced to increase their minimum wage through various states, that has happened over the last couple of years, some of them shut down because they can't afford to stay open. Some of them increase prices in order to afford to stay open. So there's a level of legitimacy that has to happen when wages are forcefully increased. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a good thing. But to prove that it is immoral, we would have to prove that the company had no choice but to do it. But it's still not illegal. And then on top of that, I also sit in the middle of, should this be illegal? And it's kind of like that person runs a business. A cost for them has increased. I think it should be up to them to increase the number. Now, there's going to be real world effects of having that number increase, but I'm not a fan of figuring out how we can make government say, hey, you can't increase your prices just because we're increasing driver pay. That, to me, from what I feel from an American business model perspective, feels very anti-American business model, you know? So I'm kind of let things live or die based off of company decisions, you know? And I understand these companies are growing to be very big, but, you know, if you have to get in your car to go and get food, I think you'll be okay. If you don't want to pay the amount, you know, vote with your wallet. So I think that a lot of the people who support these ordinance increases, when there's something negative that might happen because of it, I think that they're going to default to just blaming something outside of economics. But I've been maintaining the position that this is what happens, right? And rideshare is not one-to-one. This is food delivery. But even if a percentage of this happens to rideshare, we have to acknowledge that the potential for it to happen exists. Now, if you don't care, right? If you want wages to increase and you think it'll sort itself out, and that's fine. But I think it's short-sighted to think that there is no negative thing that will happen to drivers if we increase wages too hard, too fast. Local news station King 5 reported that Seattle residents started deleting their delivery apps from their phones in response to the spiking exorbitant delivery prices. Uber Eats experienced a 30% decline in order volume in the entire city. So, drivers is one thing, right? You can make a law focused on drivers, but if you ignore the moving parts around the total sum, it can still be dangerous for the larger economy, right? You're talking about a 30% decline in orders. If you have a restaurant that was surviving because of, these food delivery apps, and they lost a third of their orders, a third of their income, not including whatever waste they might now have because they're not fulfilling the same amount of orders that they were before. Used to be a district manager for kitchen, so some of that plays around in my head. We're talking about a third. What would you do if you lost a third of your income? It would be pretty devastating, right? So it's not as simple as let's increase wages, drivers get paid more, people order less, restaurants don't have as much money now. Those restaurants are gonna have to start cutting hours, firing people, and then those people, until they can get better work, are probably going to become rideshare drivers, food delivery workers, saturating the market, further exacerbating the issue, And I say this not because I want it to be the case. I say this because that's what has happened in various industries that are not even adjacent to rideshare. It's now happening in an industry that is adjacent to rideshare. And I think that it would be ignorant to assume it wouldn't happen at all in rideshare. I do think there are ways to implement these things that don't make it more tolerable, right? I'm not saying I'm against wage increases. I just think that doing it wrong hurts a lot. Uber Eats experienced a 30% decline in order volume in the city, while DoorDash reported 30,000 fewer orders within just the first 2 weeks of the ordinance taking effect. In turn, the decrease in demand directly impacted the pocketbooks of the delivery drivers themselves. A driver who made $931 in a week this time last year saw his earnings drop by half to $464.81 in a comparative week this year. Another reported consistently making $20 an hour prior to the ordinance, only to see his earnings likewise fall by more than half since its enactment. In other words, while the ordinance theoretically raises drivers' earnings to over $26 per hour, a number that ironically far exceeds Seattle's $19.97 standard minimum wage, drivers are barely logging any hours as a result of the drastic decrease in demand for food delivery. So, translation, they're making more money per active hour, but the amount of active hours they have been declining, which is exactly what I think, my opinion, will happen if this ordinance in Minnesota is passed the way it currently is. I think that it's going to massacre active time. Yeah, you'll make more money per active time, but the amount of active time you're going to be able to have while you're actually picking someone up in P2 and P3, it's going to get massacred. It's going to be a bloodbath. For those of you who follow politics. Okay. As one Seattle driver summarized, it was dead. Demand was dead. A second driver put it more bluntly, I've got nothing. I'm not going to sit here for hours for one frickin' order. In addition to drivers, those who have been hardest hit include local mom and pop restaurants that have seen delivery orders dry up, and even the city's elderly and disabled population who often depend on affordable delivery options for meals. One might imagine that progressive politicians would be quick to repeal a law that hurts workers, non-corporate local businesses, and elderly and disabled all at the same time. But Seattle's government officials are busier doubling down or dissembling. I don't agree with that. I have it somewhere. Hold on, give me a second. Okay, so this is the article that I found. I don't know where it disappeared to. But here's the title. It says Seattle may walk back wage hike for delivery drivers. Drivers for apps like DoorDash and Uber Eats say their earnings have plummeted since the $26.40 hourly minimum went into effect. The city of Seattle is reconsidering the big wage hike it handed to app-based delivery drivers earlier this year after drivers said it hurt their earnings rather than helped. So I will say, if this is true, just because one person in government is considering it doesn't mean there's enough to support it. I am on board for trying things. They tried something and they're listening to the driver population and they're making reconsiderations. It doesn't mean it goes back to how it was before. Just because you implement something new and it doesn't work, you can still work at it until it does work. So don't think I'm saying, yeah, let's go back to the way it was before. Let's, I'm very accepting of people who are willing to reconsider their stances. Very accepting of it, very forgiving of it. I assume people believe what they believe because they're trying to protect people. And if that thing that they thought would protect people isn't protecting people, it's very important. The person who turns around when they're lost will get to their destination quicker than someone who is committed to being lost. You see what I'm saying? That's kind of what I'm getting at. City Council President Sarah Nelson told Seattle's Kiro News Radio last week that she's talking with drivers and delivery apps about changing the city's pay-up legislation that raised drivers' minimum wage to $26.40 an hour on January 13th. This is an example of legislation that is having unintended consequences, that is having wide impacts. If you have been here on my podcast and you've been following my points and what I'm saying, I have said it from the beginning, that just because there is some kind of positive thing that looks positive on paper doesn't mean it's not going to have unintended consequences. There's a saying, it's like, if you're a hero, you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. I feel like I was the villain, and as time progresses, I'm living long enough. I don't want to call myself a hero. I'm not a hero, but the assumptions I made previously, the data seems to be pointing towards it possibly being right, even though I want to be wrong, because I want drivers to make money. I just have to accept and understand what the world really is versus what I want it to be. There's a difference between how things are and what you hope for things to be. You have to be able to differentiate between those two. The rate includes an hourly base wage as well as 80 cents per mile and coverage of certain expenses. It is well above Seattle's regular minimum wage of $19.97, which is the highest in the US. Delivery apps including DoorDash, Uber Eats, and Grubhub responded to the increase by adding $5 regulatory response fee to customers' checks, as well as bumping up some of their other service charges, resulting in noticeably higher prices for consumers. This feels dirty, and this is why I want to push the conversation that we need more transparency from these companies. If we want to sit back and say, oh, they're only increasing it by $5 to respond to the new law, that could be true. That'd be evil of them. But there's no way for us to prove it. And that's what the problem is. I think that these publicly traded companies, DoorDash, Uber, Lyft, I think they should have to have a larger amount of transparency. We need to be seeing the specific numbers. I think Seattle and New York have laws that make that the case. I'm not going to do it now because we're running out of time, but I'm going to see if I can find some more information in regards to that. It says the pay hike also attracted more drivers to the city, which increased supply just as demand for delivery was falling, said Michael Wolf, executive director of local driver advocacy group Drive Forward. This is basic, and econ was not easy for me, especially because it had nothing to do with my degree field. And if you didn't go to college or if you didn't take econ, I get it. But what we are taught in econ is that supply and demand matters. I know that seems abstract, but if the supply of drivers increases and the demand for food delivery decreases, you see what I'm saying? That's what's happening here. It's all correlated, and the price affects all of it. So there is a sweet spot. There is some play and give to it. And the reason why I say New York City probably has the best model is because New York City artificially caps how many people can be a TNC driver. It's some number at 70,000. And they reconsider twice a year to increase it or not increase it. So because they have a cap on how many drivers are in the supply of drivers, they can afford to play around with wage changes a little more because they have a cap. Now, I don't know what the best model would be, but if Minneapolis had a cap on drivers, I might reconsider my position on how much this would actually hurt drivers. But they don't have a cap. And exactly what's happening here in Seattle could very well happen in Minneapolis. If you disagree with that, you let me know why. And try to be as logical as possible. I want to be proven wrong. I don't want to be right about this. I don't. I just think that I will be. According to a new survey by the group, drivers are now seeing fewer offers, longer gaps between trips, and lower tips. As a result, most are earning 25 to 30% less than Seattle's regular minimum wage before tips. It made the problem worse. The findings have been supported by data from the delivery apps. DoorDash earlier this month said that in 2 weeks after PayUp went live, customers placed 30,000 fewer orders, costing businesses more than $1 million. Grubhub on Monday reported that drivers are now waiting an average of 102 minutes between orders, an increase of 437% compared to before the law was implemented. That is insane. That is insane. I'm going to do some quick math here. I'm going to take this 102 minutes. We're going to go to bar.google.com and we're going to say, how many times can 102 minutes go into, let's say, an 8-hour shift, 8 hours. And this is going to tell us the amount of orders that they can get over the course of an 8-hour shift. So it's like there are 4 times that 102 minutes can fit into 8 hours. And they explain how it gets solved. But so let's assume it's like 4 point something. So 4 to 5 orders over the course of 8 hours. That's insane. I feel sorry for you guys out there. I really do. I'm actually like really upset. I'm really upset. Wolf said that he expected the city council to begin working on new legislation next week, with votes to come in early April. I'm not as upset now. I'm happy that they've tried something. It didn't work. They're trying something else. Neither Nelson nor the city council at large had responded to a request for comment as of publication time. Man. Okay. All right. So we got about 20 minutes. I think it's time to move forward. Small update. I saw this from Truck Driver. He's another YouTuber. Go check out his content here on YouTube. He drives a Tesla. He does more than just rideshare. He does Lyft, Uber. He does Amazon Prime, Amazon Flex, and he does a couple other things. He's very reasonable. I love interacting with him on X. If I had to label people as rideshare friends, whatever that means, he'd definitely be one of them. He says, this is definitely an upgrade that will allow me to make better split-second decisions. More info equal better quality decisions making by drivers. And what he's referring to is an email that was sent to him, or a notification, who knows, by Uber, where the new map routes on trip radar requests will now show you like where it's going, which is pretty dope. It should help you make better decision making. And I know trip radar requests, you have to make fast decisions, and being able to see where it's going on the map, I think is huge. That's a good win. You know, it's not very often that Uber or Lyft does something that doesn't negatively affect us one way, shape, or form. I think that this is positive. Of course, I won't know for sure. I don't know what that was. I won't know for sure until I get to see it myself, right? So if you've used it, if you've seen it, let me know how you think about it. So that's just a quick update. Nothing crazy, but worth knowing. All right, so Uber driver creates menu for passengers to select conversation. Hold on, I thought this was something Uber did. Okay, no, so we're not even gonna cover this. I thought Uber was gonna allow passengers to decide if they want to talk or not. So we'll keep moving forward. Here's another update. This is from Kian. He's another YouTuber, fairly new to the rideshare YouTube space. He makes good content. He comes from a gaming background. So if you like gaming content and you like rideshare content, I think it's a good cross section. He's a pretty good storyteller. Go check him out. He has a Tesla, and you know that seems to be the popular thing. So go check him out. He says it looks like Uber is changing the way they pay EV drivers. He says $210 for 200 rides in an EV within 30 days. And what they're changing is that they're no longer offering the dollar EV bonus. So for anyone who has gotten a Tesla and used the EV bonus as a consideration into why they got the Tesla, he does the math, kind of show what the loss of dollar value is, and we'll get to it in a second. But I want to kind of double back to that earlier conversation we were having about how I almost bought a car based off of ride types that were offered, and those ride types aren't even offered anymore. So when you're purchasing a car, I think that you should put some consideration into what these incentives are, but it shouldn't swing your decision. Your decision, it needs to be looked at as icing on the cake and not as the cake, because we're seeing that they're throwing this cake out here for you guys and they're taking it back, so just keep that in mind. There still is an incentive, but it's less than what was promised. It says, hi, Kian. Starting on April 11th, 2024, U.S. drivers of fully electric vehicles can earn an extra $210 after completing 200 eligible rides in an EV every 30 days through the end of 2024. So we don't even know what will happen next year with it. This will replace the current $1 per ride incentive. So he asks, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this just a downgrade? If you do less than 200 rides a month, like I do most of the time, then you have now lost $1 per ride. If you do more than 200 rides per month and more than 210 rides, you'd actually be making less with this new promotion than if you would just be making with $1 per ride. So basically a lose-lose, but Uber is framing it as a good thing. So I asked him, what was the cap for the $1 per ride and over what time frame? He says, I believe the cap was something like up to $4,000 total yearly from what I've seen. So 4,000 rides where you'd get the benefit. If you want to do the math here, it'd be 210 times 12 equals $2,520 over the course of a year if you're doing 210 rides per month. So he says the most you'll make with the new 210 promotion is $1,500 less than the ceiling of $1 per ride option. And then Boston Driver follows up saying, yep, drivers who do 4,000 rides a year, about 75 rides a week, will lose $1,500 annually. For part-time drivers who do fewer than 50 rides a week, they'll lose the entire EV credit. Something to consider. If you have a Tesla, you should definitely be a full-time driver, but whatever, we're not going to get into it right now. So a driver who averages 30 rides a week would also lose $1,500 a year. And he says, yep, just detailed this in my new video, lose either way. So go check him out on YouTube if you want to learn more about that, get some more details on it. I don't have a Tesla or an EV to even really make an accurate stance on this. So go check out their content. I think I'll save these for next week. Let me just quickly go through some of the other ones, make sure it's like not important stuff. Okay, yeah, we'll talk about some of these next week. Yeah, so I'll just hang out with you guys for the next 15 minutes, and hopefully you guys don't have a bunch of comments. Hold on. King says, I drive a Tesla in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, and last week I made over 2,000 pounds. It's pretty good money. With 46 hours, 27 minutes online, and 81 trips. That's actually really good. Pounds is worth more than dollars. So I suspect that's like $2,300, $400-ish. I'm just rough estimating, but I shouldn't rough estimate because you guys will chew me alive. So let's see. Convert to dollars. At today's exchange rate, as of March 26, 2024, your 2,000 euros for the concert is equivalent to the approximately 2,001, so $2,166 US. Not bad, not much of a difference. I drive a 2019 Model 3 and it's pretty cheap to charge. Insurance is about $190 a month, monthly payment $490 a month, and the car is mine after 3 years. I made a down payment of almost $10K. Good job with the down payment. I would challenge you to pay it off sooner than that. And then, yeah, because you pay it off sooner. Your insurance is $190, $490. That's what, $580, $680. You're paying almost $700 a month just for the car note and the insurance. At least if you pay off your car, you'll just go from almost $700 down to $190 just try to pay it off sooner. Is what I would do. I hate over scrolling. Oh my god, here we go. 100K delivery driver says, how much student loans do you and your wife have? I'll show you. I'll pull it up. Baby steps. I guess I got to do it through here, through my Windows link, because it's on my phone. Okay. So here it is. We've paid off since we got married $36,000 in debt. Cars are paid off. Credit cards paid off. We have $95,000 to go. And we can knock about 10 of it off. We have been not spending our money or not paying off debt until we do our taxes, just in case either of us owe any money. But my aggressive plan is to be able to do this before the year is over. So ignore that. That's not the goal. Even though that's not bad, right? If I get through the year and I gotta, hustle for 4 more months to finish it up, it's fine. It's not bad. But that's the goal. I keep my goals aggressive. I feel like if you're hitting your goals, then it shouldn't be your goals anymore. So I'm okay with failing at a goal as long as it brings me closer to the goal in comparison to just, shooting for a lower goal. Tax credit isn't a $1 for $1 rebate. Tax credit is like 30% discount in California. I know what you're saying. I need to look further into this, but it's a tax rebate that you don't need to pay back. I don't know about the California one, but the federal one you don't have to pay back. And so I don't want to speak too much on it without knowing too much about it. Tommy says this bridge collapse has a logistical nightmare in Baltimore. Yes, it does. Many cargo ships are stuck at the port Baltimore, unable to leave with freight, and that can have a larger impact on the surrounding states. It could be an impact on the whole 95. It can really affect the economy in ways that I can't even perceive. Mike B says the conspiracy chat about this is hilarious. Tommy said, about the crash. The boat lost power. Like you can see the smoke from the boat. It lost power, went off. It just crashed. People make up anything. I understand there is some room for conspiracy, but if you're gonna be conspiratory, you got to throw me some proof. And the way I'm able to negate most conspiracies is by asking why. Why would they do that? Oh, the Earth is flat and they're hiding it from us. What do they benefit from? Hiding that from us. So usually when it comes to conspiracies, there's no why behind it. So Tommy says $8.95 is a toll road, so that isn't a good deter for daily usage. Oof. Tolls are gonna suck. Mike B says I'm trying to get my bid in a rebuild. I'm trying to get my bid in to rebuild it. Are you a contractor? You're trying to rebuild the bridge? Tommy says it will cost tens of billions of dollars to rebuild that bridge. It looked like it was pretty fragile to me, but I'm not a bridge builder. Marvin says, Tristan, I'm pretty sure that the minutes portion of the rate only kicks in when the driver is waiting for a passenger or the ride goes over the MSA time to the unfirm fare. That's a fair point. Let's see if we can get that quickly answered, because that would change the math, and the math would need to be reevaluated. I don't think that it'll make a significant difference for the council's rate, but I think that it might drop the state's studies rate under that $15. So we should find out. Let's find out. I don't even know where to go to find out. Let's try the notebook first, since it's more localized. Are drivers paid How are drivers paid in P1, P2, and P3? This will give us a good answer. Drivers are paid differently depending on the time period they are working. P1, this is the time when drivers are logged into the app but have not yet accepted a ride. Drivers are not paid for P1 time. P2, this is the time when drivers are en route to pick up a passenger. Drivers are paid a per minute rate for P2 time. This is the time when drivers are transporting a passenger. Drivers are paid a per mile rate for P3 time. So, this is based off of the study. It says that in this scenario, Minneapolis, that they are paid for P2 and for P3. So my math holds true. I know that there was a point in time where we weren't paid for P2. I know it varies in different markets. If you have other information that proves this wrong, let me know. I'm okay with being wrong. The platforms have aggressively increased prices for passengers and as well as their take rate while simultaneously lowering driver pay. I agree with that. The platforms are guilty of breaking the model. I mean, morally, sure. Yeah, morally, I agree with you. Marvin says this was all done with zero transparency. There is absolutely no incentive for any other company to enter the market while Uber and Lyft are still there and playing politics. I don't think that's true because in various markets, there are other rideshare companies. It is more difficult, because of how they Uber and Lyft play, but I don't think there's no incentive. It's just difficult. There'll be an adjustment period, but if you don't take aggressive actions, nothing will change. I don't know. New York's actions weren't aggressive. They said, hey, we're going to increase pay. We're going to tie it to inflation and we're going to do it in several steps. Even Seattle did the same thing when they increased driver pay. So no, I don't agree that you have to take aggressive steps or nothing will change. I don't. I actually think that moving slow is bad. Moving too fast is bad. There has to be a good middle ground. So I don't agree with that. Melvin says, I know that we lost the EV credit. Stick to the highest tiers you can and be selective. Sure. Okay, I'm going to end it here. It's been fun hanging out with you guys. I'm glad I was able to clarify some of that bad math I did last week. I'm glad I was able to update you guys on how I feel about buying a Tesla and some other good stories and things to consider. But I'll see you guys next week, same time. And it'll be a different month. Peace.